Don't you dare touch him again, TAEHYUNG. JIMIN's scream cut through the hospital hallway so sharply that every nurse, every manager, every member of BTS froze where they stood. TAEHYUNG's face went pale, his hand still gripping the edge of JUNGKOOK's hospital bed, while JUNGKOOK lay silent with an IV in his arm and a bruise darkening near his jaw. RM stepped forward, trying to stop JIMIN before the hallway turned into a scandal, but JIMIN pushed his hand away and pointed straight at TAEHYUNG. You knew this would happen, and you still let him go. Before this story gets darker, comment where you're watching from, because tonight you're not just listening to a fight in a hospital, you're about to decide who betrayed JUNGKOOK first. Nobody expected JUNGKOOK to open his eyes at that exact second. Nobody expected him to look at JIMIN first. Not TAEHYUNG, not RM, not Jin, not even the doctor standing beside the bed. His voice was low, rough, and colder than anyone had ever heard from him. "JIMIN, stop." The room went dead quiet. JIMIN's anger cracked for 1 second, just one, because he thought JUNGKOOK was defending TAEHYUNG. But then JUNGKOOK slowly turned his head toward TAEHYUNG, and the pain in his eyes changed everything. "He didn't betray me," JUNGKOOK whispered. "He was covering for you." JIMIN's face lost all color. TAEHYUNG lowered his head, and in that single moment, everyone understood one terrifying thing. The real secret was not why JUNGKOOK ended up in the hospital. The real secret was why JIMIN had been lying to him for months. JIMIN felt like the hospital floor had dropped under his feet. For a few seconds, he could not hear the machines, the nurses, or Jin calling his name from behind. All he heard was JUNGKOOK's voice repeating inside his head, "He was covering for you." Those words did not sound like anger. That was what scared JIMIN the most. JUNGKOOK did not sound furious, disappointed, or dramatic. He sounded tired, like he had already carried the truth alone for too long. TAEHYUNG stood beside the bed with his eyes lowered, both hands clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. RM looked between them, trying to understand which part of the story had been hidden from him. Jin's face had gone stiff, the way it always did when he was trying not to panic. Suga stood near the door, silent, but his eyes were sharp. J-Hope kept looking at the hallway, nervous that staff, managers, or worse, someone outside the company might hear something they could never take back. "What does that mean?" RM finally asked, his voice low but firm. "JUNGKOOK, what do you mean TAEHYUNG was covering for JIMIN?" JUNGKOOK closed his eyes for a moment, like even breathing cost him energy. JIMIN immediately stepped closer. "Don't ask him right now. He needs rest." JUNGKOOK opened his eyes again. "Now you care if I rest?" The sentence was quiet, but it hit harder than JIMIN's scream. JIMIN stopped moving. "JUNGKOOK." "No," JUNGKOOK said. "Don't say my name like that." The doctor glanced at RM, clearly uncomfortable with the tension rising in the room. He should avoid stress. Suga gave a dry, bitter laugh under his breath. Too late for that. Jin turned sharply. "Yoongi? What? We're all standing here pretending this is a normal hospital visit when someone clearly dragged him into something we don't understand." TAEHYUNG finally lifted his head. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." JIMIN turned on him again, anger rushing back because anger was easier than fear. "Then explain it. Explain why JUNGKOOK was found unconscious near the emergency entrance with no manager, no security, no phone, and your jacket on him." TAEHYUNG swallowed hard. "Because I was the one who brought him here." The room fell still again. J-Hope took one step forward. "You brought him here? Then why did security say an anonymous person called the ambulance?" TAEHYUNG looked at JUNGKOOK, but JUNGKOOK did not look back. That small silence told JIMIN there was more, much more. "Because he told me not to be seen," TAEHYUNG admitted. "He didn't want this becoming news." RM rubbed a hand over his face, trying to keep his voice controlled. "TAEHYUNG, start from the beginning." But before TAEHYUNG could answer, JUNGKOok spoke again. "The beginning isn't with him." His eyes shifted to JIMIN. Jimin's stomach tightened. The messages. 2 words, and suddenly the hospital room felt too small. TAEHYUNG looked away. Sugar noticed. RM noticed. Jin noticed. Everyone noticed, except J-Hope, who whispered, "What messages?" Jimin's lips parted, but no sound came out. He had prepared lies for the company, excuses for the managers, and half-truths for TAEHYUNG, but he had never prepared himself for JUNGKOok saying it out loud in front of everyone. "The messages that kept telling him to stay away from me," JUNGKOok said. "The messages that said if I stayed close to Jimin, everything would be exposed." Jin looked at Jimin slowly, like he didn't want to believe what he was hearing. "Exposed?" Jimin tried to breathe normally. "It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" Suga asked. His voice was calm, but there was no softness in it. "Because right now it sounds like somebody threatened JUNGKOok. JUNGKOok got hurt. TAEHYUNG knew something, and you knew something too." Jimin's eyes burned. "I was trying to protect him." JUNGKOok's expression did not change, but his fingers curled weakly against the blanket. "By lying to me?" That was the first crack, not in Jimin's voice, in JUNGKOok's. The room felt it immediately. Even RM stopped asking questions. Jimin looked at JUNGKOok, and for one terrible second, he saw not the strong JUNGKOok everyone trusted, not the calm JUNGKOok who could handle pressure, not the golden maknae who carried pain without complaining. He saw someone wounded in a way a doctor could not treat. "I didn't have a choice," Jimin whispered. JUNGKOok stared at him. "You always had a choice." Outside the room, footsteps approached fast. A manager appeared at the doorway, face tense, phone in hand. "We have a problem." RM turned sharply. "Not now." "Now," the manager said. "Someone leaked that JUNGKOok is in the hospital." J-Hope's face dropped. Jin muttered something under his breath. Suga's jaw tightened. TAEHYUNG took a step back from the bed, like the leak had physically pushed him away. But Jimin did not move. His eyes stayed on JUNGKOok. JUNGKOok looked back at him, and in that look was a question Jimin had been avoiding for months. "If you were protecting me, why am I the one bleeding?"
The first photo appeared online within minutes. It was blurry, taken from outside the emergency entrance, but it was enough. JUNGKOok's black hoodie, Taehyung's jacket over his shoulders, the side of Taehyung's face half hidden under a mask. The caption was worse than the photo because it did not ask what happened, it decided the story for everyone. BTS JUNGKOok rushed to hospital after secret fight with member? J-Hope read it out loud once, then immediately wished he had not. Jin snatched the phone from him and lowered his voice. "Don't read that near him." JUNGKOok gave a small, bitter smile. "I'm not unconscious anymore, Hyung. That doesn't mean you need to hear trash. Trash becomes real if everyone believes it," JUNGKOok said. Nobody answered, because they all knew he was right. The manager was already typing, calling, sending messages to the company crisis team. RM walked into the hallway, speaking in a low voice, trying to stop the rumor before it grew legs. Suga stayed near the door, like a guard. Jin stood by JUNGKOok's bed, adjusting the blanket even though it did not need adjusting. J-Hope paced in a small line, anxiety written all over his face. Taehyung stood by the window, distant, silent, almost ghost-like. And JIMIN remained where he was, close enough to reach JUNGKOok, but too afraid to touch him. "You need to tell them," JUNGKOok said. JIMIN knew the words were meant for him. "Not here." "Then where? In another hallway? In another locked practice room? In another place where you get to decide what I'm allowed to know?" JIMIN flinched. Taehyung closed his eyes. That reaction made Jin turn to him. "Taehyung, did you know JIMIN was hiding something from JUNGKOok?" Taehyung's throat moved. "Yes." Jin looked hurt by that answer. "And you didn't tell us?" "I promised." "To who?" Taehyung looked at JIMIN. JIMIN looked down. The answer was obvious. Suga stepped away from the door, his patience finally thinning. So JIMIN made you keep quiet, JUNGKOok got threatened, and somehow JUNGKOok ended up in the hospital. This is not a misunderstanding anymore. This is damage. JIMIN's head snapped up. Don't talk like I wanted this. I'm talking like you caused part of it. The words landed like a slap. JIMIN's face tightened, but he did not deny it fast enough. That pause hurt everyone more than any confession could. JUNGKOok slowly turned his head toward Suga. Hyung, don't. Suga looked at him. You're defending him? No. JUNGKOok's voice dropped. I'm stopping you before you say something none of us can come back from. That sentence hit Suga because it sounded too familiar. It sounded like JUNGKOok was used to holding everyone together even from a hospital bed. RM returned from the hallway with a darker expression. The company wants us separated for now. Jin frowned. Separated? They want TAEHYUNG in another room, JIMIN out of the ward, JUNGKOok moved to a private floor, and the rest of us to say nothing. JIMIN laughed once, humorless. Of course, hide the problem. That always works. RM gave him a hard look. Do not start with me right now. JIMIN stepped closer. You're going to let them split us up when JUNGKOok just woke up? I'm trying to stop 7 people from being torn apart publicly before we even know what happened. We know what happened, JIMIN said, too fast. No, RM replied. You know what happened. JUNGKOok knows something. TAEHYUNG knows something. The rest of us are standing here like fools. The word fools made Jin look away. J-Hope stopped pacing. Suga's eyes stayed on JIMIN. The injustice was not just that JUNGKOok was hurt, it was that the people who loved him most had been left outside the truth until the worst possible moment. JUNGKOok looked exhausted, but he forced himself to speak. The first message came 3 months ago. Everyone turned to him. JIMIN's eyes widened. JUNGKOok, please. No. JUNGKOok's voice stayed quiet, but something in it hardened. You don't get to stop me anymore. JIMIN froze. TAEHYUNG pushed his hands into his coat pockets, like he needed to hide how badly they were shaking. JUNGKOok continued, each word slow. It said JIMIN made a deal. It said if I stayed too close to him, the deal would be broken and someone would release proof that would ruin him. Jin whispered, What deal? JIMIN shut his eyes. RM's jaw tightened. Suga stared at JIMIN like the pieces were starting to form, but he hated the picture. JUNGKOok looked directly at JIMIN. I asked you. You said it was nothing. You told me it was some bored anti trying to scare us. Because I thought I could handle it. You thought wrong. The manager stepped back into the doorway. We need to move JUNGKOok now. JIMIN turned. He's not going anywhere until we finish this. JUNGKOok gave him a look that stopped him cold. You don't decide that. 5 simple words, but from JUNGKOok to JIMIN, they sounded like a door locking. The private floor was colder, quieter, and more controlled. Security stood at both ends of the hallway, and every staff member had to surrender their phone before entering. The company wanted silence. The members wanted answers. JUNGKOok wanted one thing no one was ready to give him, the full truth without protection, without editing, without someone deciding he was too fragile to hear it. JIMIN was told to wait outside the room while the doctor checked JUNGKOok again. He hated it. He hated the white walls, the smell of disinfectant, the security guards pretending not to listen, and the way everyone avoided his eyes. TAEHYUNG sat on a bench across from him, elbows on knees, staring at the floor. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Then JIMIN said, Why didn't you stop him? TAEHYUNG looked up slowly. I tried. Not hard enough. TAEHYUNG's expression changed. Not anger, something worse. Exhaustion. You don't get to say that to me. JIMIN's eyes flashed. I don't? No, JIMIN, you don't. Because I was the one who followed him when he left the dorm. I was the one who found him outside that building. I was the one who kept calling your phone while you ignored it.
Jimin's face tightened. I didn't ignore it. I was in a meeting. With them? Taehyung asked. The hallway seemed to narrow around them. Jimin looked away. Taehyung stood. So it's true. You don't understand. Then make me understand. Jimin's voice dropped. Not here. Taehyung gave a bitter smile. You always say that. Not here, not now, not in front of JUNGKOok, not in front of the members. When, Jimin? After we lose him? Jimin moved so fast the guard at the end of the hallway straightened. Don't say that. Taehyung did not back down. Then stop acting like the only person allowed to be scared is you. That hit deep, because Jimin had been scared for so long that he had started treating his fear like authority. He told himself every lie was protection, every silence was sacrifice, every distance he created between himself and JUNGKOok was necessary. But looking at Taehyung now, he could see the damage had not stayed where he placed it. It had spread. It had reached JUNGKOok. It had reached all of them. The door opened. Jin stepped out first, and his expression made both Jimin and Taehyung stop. He wants to speak to everyone. Jimin immediately moved toward the door, but Jin blocked him with one hand against his chest. Listen to me first. Jimin blinked, startled. Jin rarely looked at him like that, not as a hyung teasing him, not as someone trying to lighten the mood, but as someone drawing a hard line. No shouting, no blaming, no trying to control the room. Jimin swallowed. Hyung, I mean it. Jin's voice broke slightly, but he held it together. He woke up in a hospital and still had to calm us down. That is not fair, not to him. Jimin looked past Jin into the room. He could see JUNGKOok sitting slightly upright, pale but awake, RM beside him, Suga near the wall, J-Hope close to the window. JUNGKOok's eyes found Jimin from across the room. There was no hatred there. That almost made it worse. Hatred would have been easier. This was pain, disappointment, and something Jimin feared more than anything. Distance. He stepped inside. Taehyung followed. The door closed behind them with a soft click that sounded final. RM stood at the foot of JUNGKOok's bed. We talk once, he said. No interruptions unless JUNGKOok wants to stop. Suga folded his arms. J-Hope nodded quickly. Jin took his place beside the bed. Taehyung stayed near the door. Jimin stood in the middle of the room, exposed. JUNGKOok looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, Tell them about the contract. Jimin's face went blank. RM's eyes narrowed. Jin whispered, What contract? Taehyung inhaled sharply. Suga pushed off the wall. There it is. Jimin looked at JUNGKOok, silently begging him not to continue. JUNGKOok's mouth tightened. You said I always had a choice, so now I'm giving you one. His voice lowered. Tell them, or I will. And for the first time that night, Jimin looked truly afraid. Jimin stared at the floor, because the truth was easier to face when he did not have to see what it did to everyone. 6 months ago, he began, and even his own voice sounded unfamiliar. Someone from outside the company approached me. RM's posture changed immediately. Who? A producer, not officially, not through normal channels. Suga's eyes sharpened. Name. Jimin shook his head. I can't say it yet. Wrong answer, Suga said. Jin held up a hand, but his face was pale. JUNGKOok watched Jimin without blinking. Jimin forced himself to continue. They had information, private recordings, edited messages, photos taken out of context, things that could be used to make it look like JUNGKOok and I were hiding something from the company, from the members, from fans. J-Hope's voice trembled. Were you? The question hurt because it was not judgmental. It was frightened. Jimin looked at him. No, not like that. JUNGKOok's jaw tightened. Not like that is not the same as no. A silence followed. RM looked from Jimin to JUNGKOok. What were they threatening to expose? Jimin closed his eyes. That I was planning to leave for a solo project earlier than announced. Jin took a step back. Leave? Not BTS. Jimin said quickly. Not permanently. It was a private offer, a global stage project, film, album, tour concept. It was supposed to be temporary, but the schedule would have pulled me away during group preparation. RM's face hardened, not from anger only, but from betrayal. And you didn't tell us. Because I rejected it. Then why the contract? Asked Suga. Jimin swallowed. Because I didn't reject it immediately. Jungkook looked down. That small movement said more than any accusation. He had known part of it, maybe guessed the rest, and still hearing Jimin admit it hurt him. Jimin's voice grew thinner. I was tired. I was confused. I felt like everyone expected me to be strong, beautiful, controlled, grateful, perfect. I wanted something that was mine for once. Then they started using it against me. They said if I didn't cooperate, they'd leak that I was abandoning the group. They said they'd make it look like Jungkook was the reason. RM's anger shifted. Why Jungkook? Jimin finally looked at him. Because they knew I would do anything to keep him out of it. Jungkook let out a quiet breath, almost like a laugh, but empty. So you pushed me away. Jimin turned to him. I thought if people saw distance between us, they'd stop using you. And when I asked why you changed, I lied. When I followed you because I knew something was wrong, I got angry. When I received threats, Jimin's voice broke. I panicked. Jungkook nodded slowly, but his eyes were wet now. And tonight? Jimin could barely speak. Tonight, I went to meet them. RM's voice dropped. Alone? Jimin nodded. They said they had the original files. I thought I could end it. I thought I could sign something, pay something, make it disappear. Suga's expression turned dangerous. You thought blackmail disappears when you feed it? Jimin had no defense. TAEHYUNG stepped forward. Jungkook found out. Everyone looked at him. TAEHYUNG's voice was rough. He saw a message on Jimin's old phone. He realized where Jimin went. He asked me to take him there. Jimin turned sharply. You took him? TAEHYUNG's eyes filled with anger. He was already leaving. He would have gone alone. Jungkook spoke quietly. I wanted to stop you. Jimin looked at him, stunned. Why? Jungkook's eyes lifted. Because you were walking into a trap. The words emptied the room. RM stepped closer. What trap? Jungkook reached weakly toward the side table where his phone had been placed in a sealed hospital bag. Jin picked it up and handed it to him carefully. Jungkook unlocked it with shaking fingers and opened a recording. I recorded part of it before everything went wrong. The phone speaker crackled. A distorted voice filled the room, low and smug. Jimin will sign because he always does what fear tells him to do. And if Jungkook comes, even better. A hospital photo will make the story believable. Jimin stopped breathing. Jin covered his mouth. J-Hope whispered, They planned the leak. The recording continued. Once fans choose sides, BTS won't need enemies. They'll destroy each other. Jungkook stopped the audio. The silence afterward was heavier than the recording. Jimin looked at Jungkook like he was seeing the full wound for the first time. You knew they wanted to use you? Jungkook nodded once. I knew enough. Then why did you come? Jungkook's eyes darkened. Because you still went. Jimin's anger, fear, and guilt collapsed all at once. He stepped closer to the bed, but Jungkook did not reach for him. That hurt more than shouting. RM took the phone from Jungkook gently and looked at the screen. We need this secured, now. Suga was already by the door. And we need the name. Jimin shook his head slowly. If I give you the name, they'll release everything. Suga turned back. Jimin, they already started. The manager burst into the room again, face ashen. Another leak just dropped. No one spoke. The manager lifted the phone with a shaking hand. It says Jimin caused Jungkook's injury. Jungkook closed his eyes. TAEHYUNG looked like he had been punched. RM's face went cold. Jin whispered Jimin's name, but Jimin couldn't answer. He stared at the screen, at the headline spreading faster than truth ever could, and understood the trap had not been avoided. It had only begun.
Then Jungkook opened his eyes and said the sentence that made every member turn toward him. "Let them believe it." Jimin's face shattered. "What?" Jungkook's voice was weak, but his decision was clear. "Let them blame you for now." RM stepped forward. "Jungkook, no!" Jungkook looked at Jimin, and there was something protective in his eyes that Jimin did not deserve. "If they think they're winning, they'll get careless." Jimin shook his head, tears finally breaking. "I won't let you sacrifice yourself for my mistake." Jungkook's eyes did not move. "Then stop making decisions without me." And that was the moment Jimin realized the injustice was not only what the world was doing to them, it was what he had done while calling it love.
By dawn, the hospital had become a battlefield without a single raised weapon. Security stood outside every elevator. Managers walked with phones pressed to their ears. The company's legal team arrived before sunrise carrying folders, tablets, and the kind of serious faces that made every hallway feel smaller. Jungkook had been moved again, this time to a room with no visible nameplate and no open curtains. Outside, the world was already tearing them apart. Inside, the 7 of them sat in a silence that felt worse than shouting. JIMIN had not slept. His eyes were red, his hands cold, his face drained of everything except guilt. Jungkook sat against the pillow, still pale but stubbornly awake, watching every person in the room like he was memorizing who would break first. RM stood by the window with the recording saved on 3 separate devices. Jin had taken over the table, arranging medicine, water bottles, and tissues, because when he could not fix a crisis, he fixed whatever was within reach. Suga was leaning against the wall, arms folded, expression unreadable, but his jaw kept moving like he was chewing on anger. J-Hope looked exhausted, his brightness completely gone. Taehyung sat near the door, away from Jimin, away from Jungkook, away from everyone, like he had placed himself on trial before anyone else could do it. The manager entered and closed the door carefully. "The company wants a statement within 1 hour." RM turned. "What kind of statement?" The manager hesitated. That hesitation was enough for Suga to laugh quietly. "Say it." The manager looked at Jimin, then Jungkook. "They want to say Jungkook collapsed from exhaustion after a private schedule, and Jimin was present but not responsible. Taehyung's presence will not be mentioned." Jimin's head lifted. "So a lie." "A controlled statement," the manager corrected. "A lie," Jungkook said. His voice was calm, but the room felt the warning in it. The manager looked uncomfortable. "It protects you for now." Jungkook's eyes narrowed. "Who is you?" The manager froze. RM noticed it immediately. "Answer him." The manager sighed. "It protects the group." "No," Jungkook said. "It protects the company from admitting there was blackmail." Jin's hand stopped on the water bottle. J-Hope looked at RM. Taehyung lowered his eyes again. Jimin wanted to speak, but every time he opened his mouth, Jungkook's last words came back to him. "Stop making decisions without me." So he stayed quiet. It was one of the hardest things he had ever done. The manager's tone became careful. "If we mention blackmail, the media will ask what was being used. They will dig into everything. They will dig into Jimin's rejected contract, Jungkook's messages, Taehyung's involvement, even old footage. We need to reduce the fire, not feed it." Suga stepped forward. "The fire is already burning. And if we pour the wrong truth into it, it becomes an explosion." RM looked at Jungkook. "What do you want?" Everyone turned to him. Jungkook looked at the blanket for a second, then at Jimin. "I want the person behind this to think we're scared." Jimin went still. "Jungkook." Jungkook ignored the interruption. "The leak says Jimin caused my injury. If we deny everything too cleanly, they'll know we have proof. If we panic, they'll push harder. If we fight each other publicly, they'll relax." Jin's face tightened. "You're talking like bait, because that's what they made me." "No," JIMIN said sharply. JUNGKOOK's eyes cut to him. JIMIN forced himself to lower his voice, but the pain still came through. "No, I already let them use you because I was scared. I'm not doing it again." JUNGKOOK stared at him, and for the first time since waking up, anger finally showed. "You don't get to turn brave after the damage is done and call it protection." The sentence hit so hard, Jin actually looked away. JIMIN swallowed. "Then what do you want me to do?" JUNGKOOK's answer came without hesitation. "Obey the rules." Suga's eyes shifted. "What rules?" JUNGKOOK looked at every member one by one. Rule 1. No one meets anyone alone. Not a producer, not a staff member, not a manager, not even someone from the company if it feels wrong. Rule 2. Every message gets copied to RM and legal. Rule 3. Nobody lies to protect someone else. Not anymore. His gaze stopped on JIMIN. Rule 4. If they attack one of us, all 7 respond together or not at all. The room stayed silent. The rules were simple, but they changed everything. They took the power away from fear. They took the secret out of JIMIN's hands. They gave JUNGKOOK a voice after everyone had treated him like someone who needed to be saved instead of someone who could choose. RM nodded slowly. "I agree." Jin looked at JIMIN. "Me too." J-Hope whispered, "Together." Suga gave a short nod. Taehyung did not speak. JUNGKOOK noticed. "Hung?" Taehyung looked up. His eyes were tired. "Do the rules include me?" JIMIN's chest tightened. No one answered fast enough. Taehyung smiled a little, but it had no warmth. "I thought so." JUNGKOOK's expression changed. "Taehyung." Taehyung stood. "I covered for JIMIN. I brought you to that building. I hid from security. I became the photo they needed. So if someone has to be blamed inside this room, I know where I stand." JIMIN stood too. "Don't do that." Taehyung turned to him, finally letting the hurt show. "You don't get to stop me from taking responsibility when you spent months refusing yours." JIMIN had no answer. The manager's phone buzzed again. His face changed as he read the screen. The anonymous account just posted again. RM took the phone from him. His eyes moved across the message, and his expression hardened. "They're asking for JIMIN to apologize to JUNGKOOK publicly by noon." JUNGKOOK looked up. Jin whispered, "That makes him look guilty." Suga's voice came low. "That's the point." JIMIN reached for the phone and read the post himself. It was short, cruel, and perfectly designed. If JIMIN cares about JUNGKOOK, he should admit what he did before we show everyone. JIMIN felt the trap closing, but this time he did not look away. He turned to JUNGKOOK. "What's the rule?" JUNGKOOK held his gaze. "No one responds alone." JIMIN nodded, even though his voice shook. "Then we hunt together." The first meeting with legal took place in a hospital conference room with frosted glass walls and too many people pretending they were calm. The company lawyers wanted timelines. The security team wanted phone logs. The PR team wanted wording. The members wanted the name JIMIN still refused to say. At the center of it all sat JIMIN, looking like the entire table had been built to judge him. JUNGKOOK was not supposed to leave his room, but he came anyway, in a wheelchair, pushed by Jin, with a blanket over his lap and a face that dared anyone to tell him to go back. JIMIN's eyes followed him the moment he entered. "You should be resting." JUNGKOOK did not even look at him. "Rule 3. JIMIN shut his mouth. Suga almost smiled, but the situation was too ugly for it. RM placed JUNGKOOK's phone on the table and played the recording again, this time for legal. The distorted voice filled the room. "JIMIN will sign because he always does what fear tells him to do, and if JUNGKOOK comes, even better. A hospital photo will make the story believable." When it ended, one of the lawyers replayed it. Then another asked, "Can you identify the voice?" Everyone looked at JIMIN. He stared at his hands. "Yes." RM leaned forward. "Then say it." JIMIN's fingers tightened.
Kang Do-yeon. One of the PR staff reacted first, eyes widening before she controlled it. Suga noticed. "You know him." She looked at the lawyer. The lawyer answered instead. "Former executive producer. He worked with several global labels. He left after contract disputes." RM's voice sharpened. "And he approached JIMIN?" JIMIN nodded. "He said the offer came through private investors. He made it sound official at first. Big stage, international rollout, creative freedom. He knew exactly what to say." Suga's expression was cold. Predators usually do. Jin looked furious now, not loud, not dramatic, but quietly furious in a way that made his voice heavier. "Why didn't you bring it to us?" JIMIN answered honestly, because he had run out of lies. "Because part of me wanted it." The room shifted, not because wanting a solo opportunity was wrong, but because truth always changed the shape of pain. JIMIN looked at the table. "I wanted to know what I could be without everyone watching me as part of something bigger. I wanted to be chosen without being compared. Then I hated myself for wanting it. Then when the threats started, I thought it was punishment." Jungkook finally looked at JIMIN. "Punishment for what?" JIMIN's lips trembled once before he controlled it. "For wanting to leave the room, even if I never meant to leave you." That sentence landed between them, raw and unprotected. Taehyung looked down. J-Hope wiped at his eye quickly, hoping no one saw. RM stayed focused, but his face had softened just slightly. Jungkook's expression did not soften. That was the hardest part. "You didn't leave the room," Jungkook said. "You locked me out of it." JIMIN looked at him. "I know." "No, you don't." Jungkook's hand tightened on the blanket. "You think the worst part was the threats. It wasn't. The worst part was watching you turn cold and not knowing what I did wrong." JIMIN's face crumpled. "You did nothing wrong." "I know that now." Jungkook's voice dropped. "I didn't know it then." The conference room went silent. It was one thing to discuss blackmail, contracts, leaks, and strategy. It was another to hear the private damage behind it. Jin's hand rested on the back of Jungkook's wheelchair. Suga looked at the floor. J-Hope's mouth pressed into a thin line. Taehyung looked like the words were cutting him too, because he had been close enough to see it happening and still stayed quiet. The lawyer cleared his throat carefully. "We need every message, every call, every meeting location." JIMIN nodded. "I'll give it. And we strongly advise not posting anything personal today. The demand for an apology is bait." The PR staff added, "If JIMIN apologizes publicly, the story becomes guilt. If Jungkook defends him, it becomes suspicious. If Taehyung speaks, they'll frame it as a love triangle or internal fight. We need neutral language." Suga's eyes narrowed. "Neutral language won't beat someone who already wrote the headline." RM looked at him. "Then what do you suggest?" Jungkook turned slightly. "Meaning?" Suga leaned forward. "They want the public to think JIMIN hurt Jungkook. We release one thing that makes that version impossible, but not enough to reveal our whole hand." The lawyer frowned. "Such as?" Suga looked at Jungkook. "The ambulance timestamp." Taehyung's face changed. Jungkook understood immediately. If the photo shows Tae outside the emergency entrance at 2:17 and the anonymous account claims JIMIN brought me there at 2:40, RM finished, their timeline breaks. The PR team started typing. For the first time that morning, the room had movement that felt useful. But then Taehyung spoke quietly. "That puts me at the center." Everyone looked at him. He smiled without looking at anyone. "Again." Jungkook's voice softened just a little. "Hyung, we don't have to use it." Taehyung shook his head. "No, use it." JIMIN looked at him. "Tae." Taehyung finally turned. "No, you need to learn something, JIMIN. Protection without consent becomes control. You did it to Jungkook. Don't do it to me now." JIMIN went silent. The sentence was clean, brutal, true. RM nodded. We release the timestamp through the company, no names beyond what's necessary. We say Jungkook is receiving care, rumors are false, and legal action is underway. The manager stood to leave, but before he reached the door, his phone buzzed again. He read it and stopped. Kang Do-yeon's side just contacted legal. The lawyer looked up sharply. What did they say? The manager's voice lowered. They want a private meeting, tonight. They say if JIMIN doesn't go, they'll release the first file. Jungkook's face went cold. JIMIN felt his old fear rise like a hand around his throat. But before he could speak, RM closed the folder in front of him and said, then this time, JIMIN won't go as prey.
The rule was simple. No one went alone. But rules sounded easier in a hospital room than they felt in the real world. By evening, the private meeting location had been sent through a chain of disposable numbers. It was a closed studio on the edge of the city, the kind of place where celebrity rehearsals, private recordings, and unofficial deals could happen without cameras if someone paid enough. The company wanted police involved immediately. Legal wanted to stall. PR wanted proof before anything public. Jungkook wanted to go. JIMIN refused. That argument exploded in Jungkook's room less than 10 minutes after the location arrived. Absolutely not, JIMIN said, standing at the foot of the bed. You can barely stand. Jungkook's eyes were dark. I don't need to dance. I need to listen. You need to recover. You don't get to use my injury as a leash. JIMIN flinched. Jin stepped in quickly. Both of you, lower your voices. TAEHYUNG, tell him, JIMIN said. Jin looked between them, then sighed. I think Jungkook should stay here. Jungkook's jaw tightened, but Jin continued before he could react. Not because he's weak, because if they want another hospital photo, we don't hand them a second chance. That landed better. Jungkook looked away, frustrated but listening. RM nodded. Jin's right. They planned one injury, we don't assume they won't plan another. J-Hope sat beside Jungkook. Let us go this time. Jungkook's voice was low. And I just wait? Suga answered from the corner. No, you coordinate. You watch the live feed. You make decisions with us. Jungkook looked up. Live feed? Suga pulled a small device from his pocket. Legal approved body audio. Security will be nearby. Police liaison on standby. We're not amateurs tonight. TAEHYUNG looked at the device, then at JIMIN. Who's going inside? RM answered. Me, JIMIN, Suga, and TAEHYUNG. Jin immediately frowned. Why TAEHYUNG? TAEHYUNG answered before RM could. Because Do-yeon already used me in the photo. If I disappear, he controls my role. If I show up with them, he has to react. JIMIN hated that logic. He hated it because it was right. Jungkook stared at TAEHYUNG for a long second. Don't let him isolate you. TAEHYUNG nodded. I won't. And don't let JIMIN talk first. JIMIN turned. What? Jungkook's gaze moved to him. You react emotionally when scared. Suga muttered. Accurate. JIMIN shot him a look, but there was no heat behind it. Jungkook continued. Do-yeon knows how to make you feel guilty. If you talk first, he'll pull you back into the same trap. JIMIN swallowed because once again Jungkook was protecting him by naming the weakness JIMIN wanted to hide. RM looked at Jungkook. Then who talks first? Jungkook's answer was immediate. Yoongi Hyung. Suga raised an eyebrow. Me? You don't scare easily, and when you're angry, you get quieter. That's useful. Suga gave a short nod. Fine. JIMIN looked at Jungkook, something painful and tender crossing his face. You thought about all this? Jungkook held his gaze. I had 3 months of silence to think. JIMIN could not answer. The room softened for a half-second, but the crisis did not allow comfort to stay. The company car left the hospital through a service exit after dark. JIMIN sat in the back between RM and TAEHYUNG, while Suga sat in front watching the city through the window. No one spoke for the first 20 minutes.
The streets blurred past in cold lights. JIMIN kept replaying every mistake, the first message, the first lie, the first time JUNGKOOK reached for him after practice and JIMIN stepped away because he thought cameras were watching. The first night JUNGKOOK stopped asking what was wrong. He had mistaken JUNGKOOK's silence for acceptance. Now he understood it had been injury. RN's voice broke the silence. "When we get there, you stay behind me." JIMIN looked at him. "Namjoon, non-negotiable." Taehyung looked out the window. "He'll try to split us." Suga nodded. "Let him." JIMIN frowned. "What?" Suga turned slightly. "People like him think every bond has a weak point. Tonight we let him show us where he thinks ours is." The car stopped 2 blocks from the studio. Security moved first. The members waited until the signal came. JIMIN's phone buzzed once. A message from JUNGKOOK appeared on the screen. "Don't answer fear, answer truth." JIMIN stared at it until the words blurred. Taehyung saw the message, but said nothing. RM opened the car door. "Ready?" JIMIN breathed in. For months he had been running from one man, one threat, one secret. Tonight, the secret had nowhere left to hide. They entered the studio through the back. The hallway smelled of dust, metal, and old equipment. At the end of it, under a single overhead light, Kang Do-yeon waited with 2 men beside him and a smile that made JIMIN's stomach turn. "JIMIN," Kang Do-yeon said warmly, like they were old friends, "you finally came." Suga stepped forward before JIMIN could respond. "Wrong. He didn't come. We did." Do-yeon's smile faded just enough for everyone to see the first crack.
Kang Do-yeon looked older than JIMIN remembered. Or maybe JIMIN was finally seeing him clearly. The expensive coat, the calm smile, the soft voice, the careful posture, all of it had once made him seem powerful. Now it looked rehearsed, fake, a performance built to make frightened people obey. Do-yeon's eyes moved from Suga to RM, then to Taehyung, then finally back to JIMIN. "This is unnecessary." Suga's voice stayed flat. "Good, then we can leave." Do-yeon smiled again. "You always were blunt, Yoongi, but this isn't your business." RM stepped forward. "Anything involving one of us is our business." Do-yeon gave a small laugh. "That sounds good in interviews. In real life, each of you has separate contracts, separate ambitions, separate fears. Let's not pretend loyalty removes self-interest." JIMIN felt the words trying to crawl under his skin. JUNGKOOK's message flashed in his mind. "Don't answer fear, answer truth." Suga tilted his head. "You asked for a meeting. Talk." Do-yeon's smile thinned. He lifted a folder from the table beside him. "JIMIN knows what's inside." JIMIN's hands curled. RM noticed but did not move. Do-yeon opened the folder slowly, making the moment stretch. Draft agreements, private messages, a recording of JIMIN discussing an independent schedule that would have conflicted with group work, photos of him entering his office. Nothing illegal, but very emotional. Fans don't need crimes to feel betrayed. They only need a story. Taehyung's voice was quiet. "You mean a lie." Do-yeon looked at him. "A version?" Taehyung's jaw tightened. "A lie." Do-yeon's eyes sharpened. "Careful, Taehyung. You're already in the story. You don't want a bigger role." JIMIN stepped forward instinctively, but RM's hand touched his arm, stopping him. Suga saw Do-yeon see it. That was the hunter's mistake. He enjoyed reactions too much. Suga said, "You leaked JUNGKOOK's hospital photo." Do-yeon shrugged. "People leak things every day." "You planned JUNGKOOK's injury." Do-yeon's expression did not change, but one of the men beside him shifted. Small movement, big answer. RM saw it. Taehyung saw it. Suga definitely saw it. Do-yeon said, "JUNGKOOK involved himself in something he didn't understand." JIMIN's voice came out before anyone could stop it. "He understood enough to know you're a coward." Do-yoon's eyes flashed with satisfaction. He wanted JIMIN to react. There he is, the emotional one, the one who signs when he panics and screams when he loses control. JIMIN almost answered again, but Suga spoke over him. And yet you needed to threaten him? Interesting. Do-yoon's smile faded. Suga walked slowly to the table, calm enough to be dangerous. You had files, you had a story, you had access to media accounts, but you still needed him in a room. Why? Do-yoon said nothing. RM's eyes narrowed as the pieces moved. Because the files aren't enough. Suga nodded. They're edited. TAEHYUNG looked at JIMIN. JIMIN stared at Do-yoon, breathing harder. Do-yoon closed the folder. Edited or not, perception wins. Only until evidence arrives, RM said. Do-yoon laughed softly. Evidence? From a recording made by an injured boy who followed people into a private facility? You think that saves you? JIMIN's blood ran cold. What did you do to him? Do-yoon leaned in slightly. I didn't touch JUNGKOOK. The wording was too careful. Suga caught it. But someone did. Silence. The kind of silence that confesses. TAEHYUNG stepped forward now, anger finally breaking through his restraint. Who? Do-yoon looked at him with open dislike. You should be more worried about yourself. The public already sees you carrying JUNGKOOK into a hospital. How long before they ask why he trusted you and not JIMIN? JIMIN turned to TAEHYUNG, and for 1 second the old jealousy, old fear, old insecurity stirred. Do-yoon saw it immediately. There, that look, that's the real story, isn't it? JUNGKOOK protected JIMIN, TAEHYUNG protected JUNGKOOK, and JIMIN protected himself. TAEHYUNG looked like he had been cut, but he did not step back. JIMIN felt shame rise hot in his chest because the lie was built from enough truth to hurt. Then JUNGKOOK's voice came through the hidden earpiece, low and steady from the hospital feed. JIMIN, Rule 4. JIMIN closed his eyes for half-second. All 7 respond together or not at all. He opened them and looked at TAEHYUNG, not Do-yoon. I was jealous. TAEHYUNG froze. RM looked at him sharply. Suga stayed still. JIMIN kept going, voice shaking but clear. I was jealous because JUNGKOOK went to you when I pushed him away. I hated that you knew how to stay beside him when I only knew how to run. But that was my failure, not yours. TAEHYUNG's eyes widened. Do-yoon's smile disappeared because confession was not supposed to be used as armor. JIMIN turned back to him. You can't use that anymore. Suga's mouth curved slightly. RM stepped forward. This meeting is over. Do-yoon's expression hardened. If you walk out, the first file goes live. RM nodded once. Then release it. JIMIN's heart jumped, but he did not speak. Do-yoon stared at RM, surprised. RM continued, voice calm. Release edited material. Will release the recording, the timestamps, the legal complaint, and the evidence that you summoned an injured artist into a staged scandal. Do-yoon's voice dropped. You don't have enough. Suga smiled without warmth. You don't know what we have. For the first time, Do-yoon looked unsure. Then his phone rang. He looked at the screen and something in his face changed. Fear. Real fear. He answered, listened for 3 seconds, and turned his back slightly, but the room was too quiet. Everyone heard the voice on the other end shout, the hospital feed is compromised. JUNGKOOK is gone. JIMIN's entire body went cold. What? RM grabbed his phone. Suga turned toward security. TAEHYUNG's face drained of color. Do-yoon slowly lowered his phone, but this time his fear looked genuine. I didn't order that. JIMIN stepped toward him, voice deadly. Where is JUNGKOOK? Do-yoon shook his head. I don't know. Suga grabbed him by the collar before anyone could stop him. Wrong answer. JIMIN's phone buzzed.
A message appeared from an unknown number with a picture attached. Jungkook was standing in a dark parking garage, one hand pressed to the wall, hospital bracelet still on his wrist. Under the photo was one sentence: "If Jimin wants the truth, he comes alone." Jimin stopped breathing. Behind him, Taehyung whispered, "They changed the rules." And Jimin realized the hunter they had come to face might not be the only one hunting them.
Jimin did not remember running out of the studio. He only remembered the cold air hitting his face, RM shouting his name behind him, Suga ordering security to lock down every exit, and Taehyung grabbing his wrist so hard it hurt. "Don't," Taehyung said. Jimin tried to pull away. "Let go." "No." "Taehyung, let go." He said alone. Taehyung's voice shook, but his grip did not. "That means they want you separated." Jimin's eyes were wild now, all control gone. "That photo was taken minutes ago. He's not safe. And you think walking into the same trap twice makes him safer?" Jimin shoved him back, not hard enough to hurt him, but hard enough for RM to step between them. "Enough," RM snapped. "Both of you." Jimin held up his phone, his fingers trembling around it. "Look at him. He's standing in a parking garage with a hospital bracelet on. He can barely walk. Whoever has him knows exactly what they're doing." RM looked at the photo again, zooming in, searching for signs, angles, reflections, anything. Suga came up behind him, eyes narrowed. "That's not the hospital garage." Jimin froze. "What?" Suga took the phone. "Look at the wall number, B4. The hospital underground level only goes to B2. Taehyung leaned closer. "So where is he? Could be an old office tower, private studio, hotel, shopping complex." RM was already calling the security team. "Trace the image metadata." The manager's voice came through RM's phone, panicked. "We're trying, but the photo was stripped." "Then use the background." RM's voice turned sharp. "Check parking garages within 15 minutes of the hospital and the studio. Look for B4, gray pillars, green emergency sign, low ceiling, no public cameras." Jimin could hear the words, but his mind was stuck on Jungkook's face in the photo. Jungkook was standing, but barely. His shoulders were tense. His mouth was set in that stubborn line Jimin knew too well. He looked injured, angry, and completely alone. Then another message came in. Not a photo this time, a voice note. The unknown number had sent it only to Jimin. Everyone saw it arrive. No one spoke. RM held out his hand. "Speaker." Jimin hesitated. The old instinct came back fast. Hide it, handle it, protect them. Then Jungkook's rule cut through him. Nobody lies to protect someone else. Jimin pressed play. Jungkook's voice filled the air, breathless and low. "Jimin, don't come alone. I repeat, don't come alone. If you get this, it means they copied my phone or forced my lock screen. Check the reflection. Don't trust the first message." The audio ended. For 1 second, no one moved. Then Taehyung grabbed the phone from Jimin and zoomed into the photo again. "Reflection," he muttered. "Where?" Suga pointed to the shiny black surface of a parked car behind Jungkook. The reflection was distorted, but there was something there. Not a face, a sign. RM leaned in. "Reverse it." Suga took a screenshot, flipped it, and the letters became clearer. "Han River Storage." Taehyung's face changed. "That's near the old rehearsal warehouse." Jimin looked at him. "You know it? We used to pass it before schedules years ago. There's a private parking level under the storage building." RM was already moving. "Cars, now!" But Suga grabbed his arm. "Wait!" RM turned. "What?" Suga looked back toward the studio entrance, where Kang Do-hyun was being held by security. If Do-hyun didn't order this, someone else did. And if someone else did, they knew our plan, our hospital room, and our communication setup. J-Hope's voice came through the group call from the hospital, frightened and tight. "Hyung, what are you saying?" Suga's eyes stayed on RM. "I'm saying we have a leak inside our side." The words landed like ice. Jimin felt the world narrow again, but this time his panic had a direction. Who knew Jungkook was watching the feed? RM answered slowly. Us. Jin, Hobie, legal, security, the manager, 2 hospital staff, and the technical team. Taehyung looked at Jimin, then away. The suspicion was ugly because it had nowhere clean to go. Anyone could have failed. Anyone could have been used. Anyone could have betrayed them. Jimin's phone buzzed again, another message from the unknown number. The rules are cute. Let's see which member breaks first. Under it was a live location pin. Han River Storage, level B4, expiring in 15 minutes. Jimin looked up. They want us there. Suga nodded. Obviously. Then we go. RM did not argue this time. Together. Taehyung stepped toward the car, but Jimin stopped him. For a second, Taehyung looked ready for another fight. Instead, Jimin said, "You ride with me." Taehyung blinked. Why? Jimin's voice was rough. Because Do-yoon tried to turn you against me. Whoever has Jungkook will try again. I need you where I can see you, and I need you to tell me if I'm being stupid. Taehyung stared at him, stunned by the honesty. Then he nodded once. Fine, you're probably going to be stupid. Jimin almost laughed, but the fear swallowed it. The cars moved fast through the night, not with sirens, not with public attention, but with the quiet speed of people who knew one mistake could become tomorrow's headline. Inside the car, RM spoke on one phone to legal and another to security. Suga watched the route map without blinking. Taehyung sat beside Jimin in silence. Jimin kept staring at Jungkook's voice note, replaying it in his head. Don't trust the first message. Even injured, even hunted, Jungkook had left them a clue. He had not been helpless, he had been fighting. That should have comforted Jimin, but it hurt more because it reminded him of what Jungkook had been doing for months while Jimin kept him in the dark, fighting alone. The car turned into an industrial road near the river. The storage building appeared dark and heavy, with only one entrance glowing under a broken sign. Security split to positions. RM turned back to Jimin. Listen to me. We do not rush in because of emotion. Jimin nodded, but his hand was already on the door. I hear you. Suga looked at him. Hearing is not the same as obeying. Before Jimin could answer, every phone in the car buzzed at once. A new post had gone live from the anonymous account. It wasn't about Jimin. It wasn't about Jungkook's injury. It was a photo of Taehyung entering the hospital with Jungkook in his arms, clearer than the first leak, with a caption that made Jimin's stomach twist. Taehyung was the last person seen with Jungkook before he disappeared. RM cursed under his breath. Taehyung stared at the screen, his face empty. Jimin looked at Taehyung, and for one dangerous second, he felt the old trap pulling at him. Suspicion, jealousy, fear. Then Taehyung whispered, "They're making me the villain." Jimin grabbed his shoulder and forced him to look up. "No, they're trying." Taehyung's eyes searched his face, almost not believing him. Taehyung held his gaze. Rule 4. Taehyung swallowed hard. Together. Then the live location pin blinked once and vanished. The storage building looked abandoned from the outside, but the underground parking level was alive with small signs of movement. A cigarette still burning near the side entrance, a service door left slightly open, fresh tire marks on the damp concrete. RM stopped everyone before they descended. We move in 2 groups, security first. We follow only when they clear the path. Jimin hated every second of waiting. Each moment felt like betrayal. Jungkook was somewhere below them, hurt, watched, maybe threatened, maybe standing only because pride would not let him fall. Taehyung stood beside him, stiff and silent, his phone still open to the leaked post framing him as the suspect. Jimin reached over and pressed the screen off. Taehyung looked at him. I need to know what they're saying. No, Jimin said, you need to know what's real. The words surprised both of them. Suga glanced back but said nothing. RM's security lead returned from the stairwell. Level B1 clear, B2 clear. We found one disabled camera on B3. B4 access is locked from inside. RM nodded. Can we force it? Yes, but whoever is inside will hear. JIMIN stepped forward. Then they already know we're here. As if answering him, the speaker system above the stairwell crackled to life. A distorted voice echoed down the concrete walls. JIMIN came with friends again. JUNGKOok will be disappointed. JIMIN's entire body tensed. TAEHYUNG grabbed his sleeve before he could move. The voice continued, amused and calm. But rules are rules, right? So here is mine. Only one member enters B4. Choose wrong and the story changes permanently. RM looked toward the ceiling speaker. Who are you? A short laugh. Someone who got tired of watching 7 men pretend loyalty is stronger than ambition. Suga's face hardened. Coward. Careful, Yoongi. You're not the one I asked for. JIMIN moved closer to the speaker. Where is JUNGKOok? Still standing, barely. That boy is stubborn, but you know that better than anyone. The voice was not Doyoon's. It was younger, sharper, less polished. RM looked at the security lead and mouthed, Trace. The lead nodded and moved back. The speaker crackled again. JIMIN, choose. You, TAEHYUNG, RM, Suga. One enters. The rest stay above B3. TAEHYUNG's hand tightened around JIMIN's sleeve. Don't. JIMIN did not answer. His mind was moving too fast. If he went, he would be giving them exactly what they wanted. If TAEHYUNG went, they could frame him further. If RM went, the leader became hostage to negotiation. If Suga went, the voice might punish him for not being the emotional target. It was a choice designed to break them, not solve anything. Then JIMIN's phone vibrated. A message arrived from JUNGKOok's number, not the unknown number, JUNGKOok's number. It said only one word, window. JIMIN stared at it. Window? TAEHYUNG looked over his shoulder. There are no windows underground. Suga's eyes sharpened. Not glass, computer window, feed window. He's seeing something. RM turned to the technical staff on call. Do we still have any connection to his device? The answer came through the earpiece. Weak signal. It keeps dropping, but his phone is active near B4. JIMIN looked around, searching. Then he saw it. A small rectangular ventilation panel on the sidewall above the stairwell landing. Behind it, a faint blinking red light. Camera. Security moved to remove it, but RM stopped them. Don't touch it. Suga understood. They're watching this stairwell. JIMIN looked at the camera and forced himself to breathe. Good. He stepped forward, letting his face come into view. TAEHYUNG whispered, JIMIN. JIMIN kept his voice steady. You want me to choose? Fine. I choose TAEHYUNG. TAEHYUNG's head snapped toward him. What? RM's eyes widened. Suga's expression flickered. The speaker went silent for 2 seconds. Then the voice returned, pleased. Interesting. JIMIN kept looking at the camera. You tried to make me doubt him. You leaked his photo. You thought I'd be too jealous, too scared, too angry to trust him. So I choose him. TAEHYUNG stared at JIMIN like the floor had moved under him. JIMIN continued, but he doesn't go alone. The voice hardened. That wasn't the rule. No, JIMIN said. That was your rule. Ours still stands. RM stepped beside him. Suga stepped beside RM. TAEHYUNG slowly moved to JIMIN's other side. 4 men lined up in front of the hidden camera, refusing the shape of the trap. The speaker crackled, but this time the voice was less smooth. Then JUNGKOok pays for your pride. A scream echoed from below. JUNGKOok scream. JIMIN broke. He surged toward the stairwell, but TAEHYUNG and RM grabbed him at the same time. Let go, JIMIN shouted. That was him. It was a recording, Suga snapped. JIMIN froze, breathing hard. What? Suga pointed to the speaker. Too clean, no echo from B4. They played it through the system. JIMIN looked sick. The voice laughed again. You're learning. RM's phone buzzed with a message from the trace team. Signal source is not inside B4, RM read. It's bouncing from another floor. Suga looked up. So the person talking may not be with JUNGKOok. TAEHYUNG turned toward the locked B4 door. Then who is?
Another sound came from below, not through the speaker this time. A metal bang, then another. 3 knocks, pause. 2 knocks, pause. 3 knocks. JIMIN went completely still. That's him. RM looked at him. You're sure? JIMIN nodded. It would wet. That's JUNGKOok. We used to knock patterns on dressing room doors when cameras were outside. Suga listened carefully. 3, 2, 3. TAEHYUNG whispered. What does it mean? JIMIN's face changed. Not danger. He looked at RM. It means wait. RM lifted his hand, stopping security. Every instinct screamed to force the door, but JUNGKOok was telling them not to. Seconds stretched. The speaker voice returned, irritated now. Last chance, 1 enters. JIMIN did not move. The knocking came again. 3, 2, 3. Wait. Then a new sound cut through the garage. A fire alarm began wailing from B4. Red lights flashed. The locked access door released automatically with a heavy metallic click. Suga's mouth parted in surprise. He triggered the alarm. RM gave one order. Move. Security rushed first. JIMIN followed before anyone could stop him. The door flew open to a lower level filled with flashing red light and smoke from an emergency canister. Cars sat covered in dust. Concrete pillars ran in rows. At the far end, near a utility room, JUNGKOok was on one knee, one hand pressed to his side, the other holding a fire alarm handle he had ripped open. His face was pale, sweaty, furious, alive. JIMIN saw him and stopped breathing. JUNGKOok. JUNGKOok looked up, eyes locking on him. Took you long enough. JIMIN rushed toward him, but halfway across the garage, a figure stepped out from behind a pillar and pressed something against JUNGKOok's shoulder. Not a gun, a phone, live streaming. The person lowered their hood. J-Hope's voice came through RM's phone from the hospital at the same moment, horrified. That's Min-jae! RM went still. Suga's eyes turned black with recognition. TAEHYUNG whispered, Our staff Min-jae? The young staff member smiled into the phone camera, tears shining in his eyes like he wanted the world to think he was the victim. Everyone is watching now, so let's stop pretending BTS is a family.
The live stream had already begun. Thousands of viewers joined within seconds because the anonymous account had been feeding rumors all night and now finally gave the public a face, a place, and a wounded JUNGKOok on camera. RM realized it first. Everyone freeze. Security stopped. JIMIN stopped. Suga stopped. TAEHYUNG stopped. JUNGKOok remained on one knee, breathing through pain, but his eyes were locked on Min-jae with pure disgust. Min-jae stood behind him, one hand holding the phone high enough to capture JUNGKOok, the members, the smoke, the flashing alarm lights, everything dramatic enough to look like proof of something. He was young, a staff member who had followed them through schedules for almost a year. Quiet, helpful, always carrying extra batteries, water, small towels, camera cables, the kind of person no one noticed enough to fear. That was the worst part. He had been close because they had allowed him to be invisible. Min-jae, RM said carefully, put the phone down. Min-jae laughed, but it cracked in the middle. Now you know my name. J-Hope's voice shook through the call. Min-jae, what are you doing? The live stream caught that too, J-Hope's frightened voice echoing from RM's phone. Min-jae's eyes flashed. Don't use that voice on me, Hung. J-Hope went silent. Jin was still at the hospital with him, and in the background JIMIN could hear Jin saying, cut the call if he uses you. But J-Hope did not cut it. He whispered, why? Min-jae's face twisted. Because I watched all of you destroy people and call it pressure. Staff fainting backstage, managers covering scandals, assistants blamed for mistakes artists made. Everyone protecting the 7 of you like the rest of us don't bleed. RM's expression changed, not defensive, alert. He understood the danger of truth mixed with resentment. If staff were mistreated, we need to know, but this is not justice. Min-jae pointed the phone at JUNGKOok. He came to stop JIMIN. He got hurt because of JIMIN. Taehyung carried him like some secret hero. The company hid it. And now you want to bury everything under legal words. Jungkook's voice was low. You hit me. The chat on the stream exploded. Minjae's hand twitched. You fell. Jungkook laughed once, bitter and weak. I fell after you shoved me into a pillar. Jimin's face went white with rage. He moved one step, and Minjae instantly aimed the phone at him. There, that look, that's what everyone needs to see. Suga's voice cut through, quiet and deadly. Careful, kid. Minjae pointed at him. You don't scare me. Suga did not move. I should. RM raised one hand slightly, warning Suga not to escalate. Taehyung looked at Jungkook, measuring distance, angle, risk. Jungkook noticed and gave the smallest shake of his head. Not yet. JIMIN saw that exchange and felt another sting, but this time he did not let jealousy turn into poison. He understood. Jungkook and Taehyung were communicating because they were trying to survive. That was not betrayal. That was trust earned in the dark while JIMIN was absent. Minjae kept talking to the stream. You all think they're perfect. You don't see what happens behind the scenes. You don't see JIMIN ignoring Jungkook for months. You don't see Jungkook waiting outside practice rooms like a dog. You don't see Taehyung covering for both of them because everyone is too scared to tell the truth. JIMIN flinched because the words were cruel but not entirely invented. Jungkook's eyes snapped toward Minjae. Shut up. Minjae smiled, pleased to finally get emotion from him. Why? It's true. You waited. You kept defending him. You kept saying he was tired, he was stressed, he needed space. But he wasn't tired, was he? He was hiding a contract. JIMIN felt the garage tilt. The chat would hear it. The public would hear it. The secret was out, but in the worst hands possible. RM stepped forward slowly. Minjae, listen to me. You are live right now. Everything you say can hurt you legally. Good, Minjae said. Maybe then someone will finally listen. Taehyung's voice was soft, careful. Someone did this to you, didn't they? Minjae's eyes moved to him. Don't. Kang Do-yoon used JIMIN. He used the leaks. Did he use you too? Shut up. He promised you something, Taehyung continued. Money? Protection? A chance to expose the company? Minjae's jaw shook. You don't get to act kind to me. Taehyung took one slow step forward. I'm not acting. Yes, you are, Minjae snapped. You all act. That's the whole job. Jungkook shifted on his knee, pain flashing across his face. JIMIN saw it and almost lost control again. RM noticed. JIMIN. RM warned under his breath. JIMIN swallowed hard and forced himself to speak, not to Minjae, but to the live camera. You want truth? Fine. I hid things. I hurt Jungkook by lying. I let fear make me cruel. That part is true. RM's head turned sharply. Suga looked at him like he was insane. The live chat surged. Minjae smiled. Finally. JIMIN lifted his eyes. But I did not hurt him in that garage. I did not ask anyone to hurt him. Taehyung did not kidnap him. Jungkook is not your evidence. He's a person, and you are using him the same way Do-yoon used you. Minjae's face faltered. Jungkook looked at JIMIN, breathing hard. Something shifted in his face. Not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition. JIMIN was not hiding anymore. JIMIN continued, voice breaking but steady. If you want to expose me for lying, do it. I'll answer, but move away from him. Minjae's hand tightened around the phone. You'd take the blame? For what I did, not for what you did. That distinction cut through the stream like a blade. Minjae's face twisted again, panic rising. He had wanted confession, but not clarity. He wanted the story messy enough to drown everyone. Suga saw the opening and moved slightly to the left. Taehyung mirrored him from the right. RM kept Minjae's attention. Minjae, Do-yoon is already in custody with security. He said he didn't order this. That means when this goes bad, he will blame you. He wouldn't. He already did, Suga said.
Min-jae's eyes flickered. Jungkook's voice came from below, low and strained. "He told you you would be a whistleblower, didn't he?" Min-jae looked down at him. Jungkook's eyes were cold. "He told you fans would protect you if you showed them the truth. He told you the members would turn on each other. He told you JIMIN would panic." Min-jae's breathing changed. "Stop." "He studied us," Jungkook continued, "but he studied you too." Min-jae's eyes filled. "Stop." "He knew you were angry. He knew you felt invisible, so he gave you a story where you mattered." Min-jae shouted and shoved Jungkook's shoulder. Jungkook collapsed sideways. JIMIN moved at the same time TAEHYUNG did. Security surged. The phone flew from Min-jae's hand, spinning across the concrete, but still streaming fast enough. The camera caught flashes, JIMIN dropping to his knees beside Jungkook, TAEHYUNG pulling Min-jae back, Suga stepping between them, RM shouting for the stream to be cut, security pinning Min-jae down as he sobbed and screamed that nobody ever listened. JIMIN slid one arm behind Jungkook's shoulders. Hey, look at me." Jungkook grimaced, his breathing sharp. "I'm fine. Don't lie to me." Jungkook's eyes opened at that. Even in pain, he caught the irony. Jimin's voice broke. "Please, not tonight." Jungkook looked at Jimin for one long second, then whispered, "I'm not fine." Jimin nodded quickly, tears falling before he could stop them. "Okay, that's okay. I've got you." Jungkook's hand weakly gripped Jimin's sleeve. Not forgiveness, not comfort, but contact, enough to keep Jimin from falling apart. Behind them, the abandoned phone still lay on the ground, the live stream pointed sideways at the concrete, broadcasting only voices now, and one voice, Min-jae's voice, cut through the chaos with a final scream. "Ask Jin, ask him what the company buried last year." Every member froze. Even Jungkook's hand tightened. Jimin slowly looked up. RM turned toward the phone call still connected to the hospital. On the other end, Jin said nothing, and that silence became the next explosion.
The ambulance arrived before the stream fully disappeared. Security finally cut the feed, but not before enough viewers had recorded everything. There would be clips, there would be theories, there would be translations, edits, accusations, defenses, timelines, and wars by morning. But in that moment, JIMIN did not care about the world. He cared about Jungkook's breathing. He rode in the ambulance because Jungkook refused to let go of his sleeve. No one commented on it. Not RM, not Suga, not TAEHYUNG, not the paramedic who clearly recognized them and pretended not to. Jungkook lay on the stretcher, eyes closed, face tense from pain, but his hand remained locked weakly around JIMIN's wrist. JIMIN sat beside him, afraid to move. "You should hate me," JIMIN whispered, so quietly only Jungkook could hear. Jungkook did not open his eyes. "I'm too tired." JIMIN swallowed. "Later then." A faint breath that almost became a laugh left Jungkook. "Maybe." The answer hurt, but it was honest, and after months of lies, honesty felt like something JIMIN had to accept, even when it cut. The ambulance doors closed. Through the small rear window, JIMIN saw TAEHYUNG standing beside RM and Suga in the flashing red light. TAEHYUNG looked shaken, not because of Min-jae's attack, but because of the last sentence he had screamed. "Ask Jin. Ask him what the company buried last year." At the hospital, Jin was waiting at the private entrance. His face was too pale. J-Hope stood beside him, eyes red, hands clasped tightly as if he had been praying the entire time. When the stretcher rolled in, Jin moved toward Jungkook immediately, but Jungkook opened his eyes and looked straight at Jin. "Hyung," Jungkook said. Jin froze. There was no accusation in Jungkook's voice, but there was awareness. Jin had heard the scream. Everyone had. "Not now," Jin said softly. "You need treatment first." Jungkook stared at him for a second, then nodded once. The doctor took him into the examination room. JIMIN was forced to let go when the doors closed. His wrist still felt the shape of Jungkook's hand. For a while, no one spoke. RM arrived minutes later with Suga and TAEHYUNG. The hallway filled again, but the fight had changed shape. The enemy was not just outside anymore.
There was something inside their history, something old enough that Min-jae knew it, painful enough that Jin went silent, and dangerous enough that the company had buried it. RM looked at Jin. What was he talking about? Jin stared at the closed examination door. Not here. Suga's voice turned sharp. We are done with not here. Jin's face tightened. Yoongi. No, we just watched JUNGKOok get used as bait, JIMIN get blackmailed, TAEHYUNG get framed, and a staff member try to burn us alive online. If there is another secret, it comes out now. J-Hope touched Suga's arm. Hyung, please. Suga looked at him. You knew too? J-Hope's eyes filled, and that answer was worse than yes. RM's expression slowly hardened. Hosak. J-Hope shook his head. I didn't know everything. I only knew there was an incident. Taehyung's voice was quiet. What incident? Jin ran both hands over his face, and for the first time that night, he looked older than all of them. Not tired, burdened. Last year, a trainee accused one of our staff of leaking private schedule information to Saesang accounts. Jimin's stomach twisted. What? The company handled it internally, Jin said. They removed the staff member, paid damages quietly, and made everyone involved sign documents. RM looked furious. Why was I not told? Jin met his eyes. Because you were already carrying too much, and because the company said it was contained. Suga laughed once, cold and disbelieving. Contained. That word should be illegal. Taehyung leaned back against the wall. Min-jae was connected to that? Jin nodded slowly. The trainee was his sister. The hallway went silent. The shape of Min-jae's rage changed instantly. It did not excuse him. It did not soften what he had done to JUNGKOok, but it made the wound older, deeper, and uglier. J-Hope wiped his face. She left the company after people called her a liar, even though she wasn't. RM's voice was low. And Doyen found him through that. Suga nodded grimly. Of course he did. Angry people are easy to aim when someone gives them a target. Jimin leaned against the wall, suddenly dizzy. So this was never only about me. Jin looked at him sadly. No, but your secret gave them the door. Jimin closed his eyes because it was true. He had not created every wound, but he had created an opening wide enough for someone else to drag JUNGKOok through it. Taehyung spoke after a long silence. Why didn't you tell us last year? Jin looked at him, and there was shame in his eyes. Because I believed silence would protect the group. Jimin opened his eyes. The sentence hit him like a mirror. Silence would protect the group. He had said almost the same thing to himself for months. Jin saw the recognition on Jimin's face and looked away. RM's voice was controlled, which made it more frightening. We keep repeating the same mistake. Suga nodded, and other people keep paying for it. The examination room door opened. The doctor stepped out, serious but not panicked. He is stable, bruising, exhaustion, mild dehydration, no new fracture. But emotionally, he needs calm. Jin almost laughed at the impossibility of that. Can we see him? One at a time for now. Everyone looked at Jimin. Jimin stepped back immediately. No. Taehyung frowned. What? Jimin shook his head. He held my wrist because he was scared and hurt. That doesn't mean I get to be first. JUNGKOok's rule had finally reached the deepest part of him. Stop deciding for me. Jimin looked at the doctor. Ask him who he wants. The doctor went back inside. The wait lasted less than a minute, but it felt longer than the whole night. When he returned, his eyes moved to Jimin. He asked for Taehyung first. The hallway froze. Taehyung looked shocked. Jimin felt the pain instantly, sharp and humiliating, but this time he did not let it become anger. He nodded. Go. Taehyung searched his face. Jimin? Go, Jimin repeated, quieter. He chose you. Taehyung hesitated, then entered the room. The door closed behind him. Jimin stood outside, hands empty, heart splitting in a way he knew he deserved. Jin moved beside him. That hurt, Jimin nodded. Good. Jin looked at him. Jimin's voice was rough. Maybe I need to feel it without turning it into someone else's fault. Inside the room, JUNGKOOK looked at TAEHYUNG from the bed. TAEHYUNG stopped near the door, unsure whether to approach. "You asked for me?" JUNGKOOK nodded. "I need you to tell me something." TAEHYUNG's throat tightened. "Anything." JUNGKOOK's eyes were tired but clear. "When JIMIN pushed me away, did you know why before I did?" TAEHYUNG closed his eyes. There it was, the question he had feared. "Not at first." "Later?" TAEHYUNG nodded. "Yes." JUNGKOOK looked at the ceiling for a moment, absorbing the answer like another bruise, then turned his head back toward him. "Why?" TAEHYUNG's eyes filled. "Because he was falling apart, and I thought if I told you, you'd lose him completely." JUNGKOOK's expression tightened. "So you chose his fear over my pain." TAEHYUNG flinched. "I thought I was protecting both of you." JUNGKOOK whispered. "That's what everyone keeps saying." TAEHYUNG could not defend himself. He lowered his head. "I'm sorry." For a long moment JUNGKOOK said nothing. Then he reached toward the chair beside the bed. Not all the way, just enough. TAEHYUNG understood and sat down slowly. JUNGKOOK looked at him with exhausted honesty. "I don't forgive you tonight." TAEHYUNG nodded. "I know. But I still trust you to tell me the truth now." TAEHYUNG looked up. That sentence hurt and healed at the same time. "I will." JUNGKOOK's eyes darkened. "Then tell me what you saw at the studio before I got hurt." TAEHYUNG went still. "What?" JUNGKOOK's voice dropped. "You saw someone else there. Not Doyeon, not Min Jae. You recognized them. I saw your face before I blacked out." TAEHYUNG's skin went cold. Outside, JIMIN heard JUNGKOOK's monitor beep faster through the wall. TAEHYUNG leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. "JUNGKOOK, if I say the name, everything changes." JUNGKOOK's gaze did not move. "Say it." TAEHYUNG swallowed. It was someone from inside the company's executive team. JUNGKOOK's hand tightened on the blanket. "Who?" TAEHYUNG closed his eyes. And outside, JIMIN heard JUNGKOOK's monitor beep faster through the wall. Taehyung did not say the name immediately, and that silence made JUNGKOOK's chest tighten harder than the bruises on his ribs. The room was too clean, too white, too quiet for the kind of truth hanging between them. Outside the door, JIMIN was still waiting, probably blaming himself for every second JUNGKOOK had chosen someone else first. JUNGKOOK knew that. He was not trying to punish him, not exactly. He had asked for Taehyung because Taehyung had been the one standing between secrets. Taehyung had seen things JIMIN was too blinded by fear to notice. And right now, JUNGKOOK did not need another apology. He needed the missing piece. "Say it," JUNGKOOK repeated, his voice low. Taehyung rubbed both hands over his face, then leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Director Han So-jin." JUNGKOOK's eyes narrowed. "From executive strategy?" Taehyung nodded. "He was at the studio, not inside the main room when we arrived, but before everything happened. I saw him near the service exit. He was talking to Doyeon." JUNGKOOK tried to sit up straighter, pain flashing across his face. Taehyung immediately stood, but JUNGKOOK lifted one hand. "Don't. Keep talking." Taehyung swallowed. "I only saw him for maybe 2 seconds. He turned away when he saw me. At first I thought maybe I was wrong. It was dark. I was focused on you. You were already arguing with Min Jae, and then everything moved too fast. But I know what I saw." JUNGKOOK's jaw tightened. An executive from our own company was meeting the man blackmailing JIMIN? Yes, the word barely came out. JUNGKOOK looked toward the door. The monitor beside him beeped faster. "RM needs to know." Taehyung's face twisted. "I know. Then why didn't you say it outside?" "Because the second I say Han's name, this stops being a scandal someone is trying to create from outside. It becomes an internal betrayal. It means someone with access to our schedules, our security, our medical updates, our staff, maybe even our contracts, helped aim everything at us." JUNGKOOK stared at him. "That's exactly why we need to say it." Taehyung gave a tired, painful smile. It sounds like you. What does that mean? It means even half-conscious, you still think running toward the fire is a plan. Jungkook did not smile. No, I think pretending the fire is not in the house is why we keep choking. That ended the argument. Taehyung nodded slowly, then moved to the door, but before he opened it, Jungkook spoke again. Taehyung stopped. When I asked for you first, it wasn't because I stopped caring about JIMIN. Taehyung's shoulders lowered a little, like the words had touched a wound he had not admitted existed. I know. Jungkook looked down at the blanket. I needed someone who would answer even if the truth hurt me. Taehyung turned back, eyes wet. That should have been all of us. Jungkook nodded. Then start now. Taehyung opened the door. JIMIN looked up first. His eyes went straight to Jungkook's bed, then to Taehyung's face. He knew immediately something had happened. RM stood from the chair near the wall. Suga straightened. Jin stepped forward. J-Hope wiped his face and tried to look ready, though he clearly was not. Taehyung's voice came out steady only because he forced it. We have another name. JIMIN's face changed. Whose? Taehyung looked at RM. Director Han So-jin. Nobody moved. Then RM's expression slowly hardened in a way that scared even JIMIN. Say that again? Director Han So-jin, Taehyung repeated. I saw him at the studio before Jungkook got hurt. He was with Do-yoon. Jin whispered, no. Suga's eyes went cold. Of course. J-Hope looked confused and frightened. Director Han? But he approved our private security rotation this month. Exactly, Jungkook said from inside the room. His voice was weak, but it carried. JIMIN took one step toward him, then stopped himself. Jungkook noticed. For a second, something passed between them. JIMIN asking without words if he could come in. Jungkook answering without words that not yet did not mean never. RM entered the room first, followed by Suga, Jin, J-Hope, JIMIN, and Taehyung. The doctor would have hated it. Jungkook did not care. RM stood beside the bed. Are you sure? Jungkook looked at Taehyung. Taehyung nodded. I'm sure. RM pulled out his phone, then stopped. His eyes moved to the ceiling, to the vents, to the medical monitor, to the phone chargers, to every place a listening device could hide. The simple act made everyone understand how far trust had fallen. Suga noticed and took out his own phone, typing fast. I'm asking security to sweep the room. JIMIN looked at RM. You think he can hear us? RM's answer was quiet. I think he has heard enough already. The room seemed to close in around them. For months, JIMIN had feared enemies outside, antis, opportunists, producers, media accounts, but the idea that someone inside their own company might have watched them break from a controlled distance made the fear different, more personal, more humiliating. Jungkook looked at JIMIN, guilt rising again, but Jungkook spoke before he could drown in it. Don't. JIMIN froze. What? Don't make that face like everything is yours alone. Jungkook's voice was tired but firm. You made mistakes, big ones, but this is bigger than you. JIMIN blinked, wounded by the mercy because he didn't know what to do with it. I still opened the door. Jungkook looked at him. Then help us close it. That wasn't forgiveness. It was a claim, a demand for action. JIMIN nodded slowly. Tell me what to do. Suga looked at him. First, you give legal everything. No holding back. Every meeting, every deleted file if you can recover it. JIMIN nodded. Done. RM added. Second, nobody from executive enters this floor unless cleared by our personal legal team. Not company legal. Ours. Jin looked at him. Do we have personal legal? RM's jaw tightened. We will by morning. J-Hope breathed out shakily. This is going to start a war inside the company. Suga looked at him. It already started. We're just finally admitting it. Taehyung's phone buzzed. He checked it, then paled. The public is turning on me. JIMIN stepped closer. What? Taehyung showed the screen. Clips from the stream were being cut out of context. Taehyung holding Min-jae looked like Taehyung attacking a staff member. The hospital photo looked like evidence. Comments demanded answers. Some blamed JIMIN, some blamed Taehyung, some blamed the company, some blamed JUNGKOok for hiding drama. The trap had changed shape again. Suga cursed softly. RM looked at the screen and made a decision. We need a statement. The PR manager, standing at the doorway after finally being cleared in, immediately said, "A neutral one." JUNGKOok looked at him. "No." Everyone turned. The PR manager looked startled. "JUNGKOok, with respect, you need rest." JUNGKOok's eyes sharpened. "With respect, I'm the one in the hospital bed being used in every headline." JIMIN almost smiled despite everything, because there was the JUNGKOok he knew. Hurt, exhausted, stubborn, and done being handled. JUNGKOok turned to RM, not neutral. RM studied him. How clear? JUNGKOok looked at JIMIN, then Taehyung, then every member in the room. Clear enough that no one gets sacrificed alone. The PR manager looked horrified. That could escalate everything. JUNGKOok's voice was calm. Good. And that was when the door opened without a knock. Director Han So-jin stepped inside with 2 senior managers behind him. His suit perfect, his expression grave, his timing impossible. He looked at JUNGKOok first, then JIMIN, then Taehyung. RM stepped in front of JUNGKOok's bed. Suga moved toward the door. Taehyung went rigid. JIMIN's hands curled at his sides. Han smiled politely, like a man entering a meeting he still believed he controlled. "Gentlemen," he said, "let's not destroy our own home over rumors." JUNGKOok looked past RM, directly at him, and replied, "Then stop setting it on fire."
Director Han's smile did not disappear, but it tightened at the edges. That was the first sign that JUNGKOok's words had landed. He was not used to being spoken to like that, especially not by someone in a hospital bed, especially not with all 7 members in the room watching him as if the power had shifted. He glanced at the PR manager, then at the senior managers behind him, and finally at RM. "I came because the situation is spiraling publicly. We need unity." Suga closed the door behind Han and stood in front of it. Funny word. Han turned slightly. "Excuse me? Unity. People usually use it when they want someone quiet." Jin stood beside J-Hope, both of them tense. RM did not move from in front of JUNGKOok. "Why were you at the studio?" Han's eyes flickered so quickly that someone outside the group might have missed it. Nobody in that room missed it. "Studio?" Taehyung's voice was low. "Don't." Han looked at him with mild surprise, like he was disappointed in a child. "Taehyung, I understand emotions are high. You have been unfairly pulled into this." "By you?" Taehyung asked. The words cut cleanly. One of the senior managers shifted uncomfortably. Han's expression cooled. "Be careful." JIMIN stepped forward. "No, you be careful." Han looked at him, and something old passed between them. Not warmth, not trust, recognition. JIMIN had sat across from this man in conference rooms, had listened to him speak about strategy, opportunity, image protection, timing, risk. Han had always sounded reasonable. That was how people like him survived. They did not threaten first. They explained until fear started sounding like logic. "JIMIN," Han said softly, "I know you're scared. You made private decisions under pressure, and now everyone is emotional. I am here to prevent permanent damage." JIMIN felt the familiar pull of that tone, the gentle authority, the implication that Han knew better, that JIMIN had already made things messy, that the mature thing was to let someone powerful clean it up. But this time, JIMIN looked at JUNGKOok first. JUNGKOok's eyes were on him, not pleading, not controlling, just waiting to see which version of JIMIN would answer. JIMIN turned back to Han. Permanent damage already happened. Han sighed. "Only if you keep feeding it." RM's voice was cold. "Answer the question. Were you at the studio?" Han spread his hands.
I was informed that Kang Do-yeon was attempting unauthorized contact with one of our artists. I went to assess the situation. Suga let out a quiet laugh. Alone? Without legal? Without security? Without telling us? I did not want to alarm the members. That line is getting old, Suga said. Han's eyes sharpened. Yoongi, your hostility is not helpful. Neither is blackmail, but here we are. The room tightened. Han looked toward the PR manager. This is exactly why I requested a controlled discussion. JUNGKOOK spoke from behind RM. Who gave Min-jae access to the hospital floor? Han looked at him. I don't know. Who knew I was watching the studio feed? I don't know. Who knew about JIMIN's private offer? Han's jaw shifted. Several executives knew. JIMIN's stomach dropped. Several? Han gave him a look that was almost pitying. JIMIN, you signed preliminary confidentiality paperwork. You didn't think that stayed between you and Do-yeon, did you? JIMIN went still. RM turned sharply. You knew? Han lifted his chin slightly. The company became aware after the fact. Jin's face hardened. And nobody told us? Because nothing had been finalized. J-Hope whispered, but threats had started. Han's gaze moved to him. We did not know the extent. Taehyung's voice cut in. Min-jae's sister, did you know the extent then? The room went silent. Han's expression changed for the first time. Not much, but enough. That matter was closed. Was she lying? Taehyung asked. Han did not answer. Jin's eyes filled. Jin stepped forward. Was she lying? Han looked at Jin and softened his voice. Seokjin, you were told what you needed to know at the time. Jin looked like he had been slapped. Suga moved, but RM lifted a hand. Jin's voice came out quieter than expected. No, I was told what made me useful. Han's mask cracked. You are all tired. This is not productive. JUNGKOOK pushed the blanket off his lap like he wanted to stand. JIMIN immediately moved, then stopped himself again. JUNGKOOK noticed but kept his eyes on Han. Don't talk to us like we're children. Han looked at him. Then don't behave like one. You left a hospital room, interfered with a sensitive corporate matter, and allowed yourself to be turned into a public spectacle. Jimin's blood went hot. Allowed himself? RM stepped closer to Han. Leave. Han's gaze remained on JUNGKOOK. I will leave after I say what I came to say. The board is concerned. Public trust is unstable. If this continues, schedules will be suspended indefinitely. Individual activities may be reviewed. Contracts may be restructured for risk management. The threat was clean, polished, corporate. No raised voice, no cruelty on the surface, but every member felt the blade. JUNGKOOK's injury became a risk. Jimin's fear became a risk. Taehyung's loyalty became a risk. BTS itself became something to manage instead of people to protect. J-Hope looked at RM. He's threatening the group. Han turned to him. I am protecting the group. JIMIN laughed once, bitter and broken. That's what all of us keep saying right before someone gets hurt. Han's eyes narrowed. You should be the most careful, JIMIN. The public has already chosen you as a suspect. I can help redirect that. JUNGKOOK's voice became dangerously quiet. To Taehyung? Han did not answer. That was answer enough. Taehyung's face went pale, but he lifted his chin. JIMIN stepped in front of him this time, not because Taehyung needed a shield, but because JIMIN needed Han to see the trap had failed. No. Han looked at him. No? You don't get to trade one of us for another. Han's tone cooled. Sentiment will not save you. RM said, evidence might. Suga raised his phone. Security sweep found something. Han's eyes shifted before he could stop himself. Suga continued. A device behind the medical monitor. Not hospital property, not company security. Someone placed it before JUNGKOOK was moved here. Han's face went still. RM watched him closely. Care to explain? Han adjusted his cuff. I have no knowledge of that. Suga smiled. That's becoming your favorite sentence. The executives behind Han were starting to look afraid now, not because of the members, but because they could sense the room turning against their boss. The PR manager backed toward the wall, silent. Jin looked at Han with open disgust. You listened to us in a hospital room? Han's voice sharpened. Allegations without proof are dangerous. Jungkook looked at Suga. Do we have proof? Suga's smile faded into something harder. The device was transmitting to a company-owned encrypted receiver. RM stepped closer. Registered under whose department? Suga looked directly at Han. Executive strategy. The room froze. Han's mask did not crack this time. It fell. His eyes went flat, cold, almost bored. You don't understand what you are doing. RM's voice was steady. We understand enough. Han looked at each of them, and the politeness was gone. You think you are a family. You are an asset structure. A powerful one, yes, but still a structure. Every secret you hide, every emotional attachment you confuse for loyalty, every private conflict you allow to spill into business, someone has to manage it. I managed it. JIMIN stared at him. By blackmailing me? By controlling a weakness before someone worse used it. Jungkook's hand clenched. You created the weakness. Han looked at him. No, you all did. For a moment, nobody breathed. Then Han turned to JIMIN. You wanted independence but feared judgment. Jungkook wanted closeness but feared abandonment. Taehyung wanted to be needed. Jin-sok wanted peace. Hosok wanted everyone happy. Yoongi wanted truth but only after it became impossible to ignore. Namjoon wanted responsibility so badly he forgot control is not the same as leadership. Every sentence hit because Han had studied them closely enough to weaponize pieces of truth. RM's face went pale with anger. JIMIN felt Jungkook shift behind him. Taehyung looked ready to break or attack. Jin's mouth trembled. J-Hope looked devastated. Suga was the only one who smiled, but it was a dangerous smile. Nice speech. Han looked at Suga. Suga continued. You forgot one thing. What? RM answered before Suga could. We know our weaknesses too. Jungkook looked at JIMIN. JIMIN looked at Taehyung. Taehyung looked at Jin. Jin looked at J-Hope. J-Hope looked at Suga. Suga looked at RM. One by one, the thing Han tried to...
The second Han left the room, chaos broke open. RM followed him into the hallway, but security blocked the path under orders from senior management. Suga almost forced his way through, and only Jin, grabbing his arm, stopped him from turning the hospital corridor into another headline. J-Hope was crying openly now, not from weakness but from fury he did not know where to put. Taehyung stood frozen near the wall, his face empty in a way that frightened JIMIN more than tears would have. Indefinite hiatus. Pending investigation. The phrase had landed like a sentence before any trial. JIMIN felt the trap close around him and Taehyung together. Han did not need to prove anything immediately. He only needed to separate them from the group long enough for the public to accept distance as guilt. Jungkook tried to get out of bed. No, Jin said immediately, moving toward him. Jungkook pushed his hand away. Don't! His voice shook with rage. Do not tell me to lie down while they remove them. JIMIN turned to him. Jungkook, stop! Jungkook's eyes cut to him, burning. You don't tell me to stop either. JIMIN went silent. Jungkook gripped the bedrail, his body trembling from effort. They are doing it again. They are making decisions around us, about us, through us, and everyone keeps saying, wait. RM re-entered, face dark. We're not waiting. Suga looked at him. What did legal say? Company legal is compromised. We use outside counsel now. Can they stop the statement? Maybe not before morning. Taehyung laughed softly. Everyone turned. The sound was wrong. Empty. It's okay. JIMIN looked at him. No, it's not. Taehyung kept staring at the floor. Maybe it's easier this way. Jungkook's face changed. Hyung. Taehyung looked up slowly. If they need someone to blame, let them blame me. I'm already in the photo. I'm already in the clip. I carried you. I knew about JIMIN. I held Min-jae back. They can make it fit. Jimin stepped toward him. You are not doing that. Taehyung's eyes sharpened with sudden pain. Why? Because now you care? The words hit hard. Jimin stopped. Taehyung's face twisted like he regretted saying it, but the wound had spoken before his restraint could catch it. I'm sorry, Taehyung whispered. No, Jimin said quietly. You're not wrong to be angry. Jungkook watched them both, breathing hard. This was the trap at its cruelest. Not because Han invented all the emotions, but because he had arranged them under pressure until every bruise began touching another bruise. RM spoke, voice firm. Nobody is volunteering to be sacrificed. Suga nodded. Especially not because an executive with a god complex wrote a memo. Jin looked at RM. What can we release first? The PR manager, who had remained in the hallway and looked like she was deciding whether loyalty still had a future, stepped carefully back into the room. There is one option. Everyone turned to her. RM's eyes narrowed. Speak, she swallowed. A personal video. Not polished, not through the company account. Posted by one of you before the official statement. If the public hears from Jungkook first, the company loses the ability to speak over him completely. Jin looked alarmed. He's injured, Jungkook said. I'll do it. Jimin immediately shook his head. No! Jungkook glared at him. We just went over this. I'm not saying no because I decide for you. I'm saying no because you are exhausted, and anything you say while injured will be picked apart. Jungkook's anger flickered, because this time Jimin's objection was not control. It was strategy. RM looked at the PR manager. What does he need to say? Enough to break the company version without naming Han yet. He confirms he was not hurt by JIMIN or TAEHYUNG. He asks people not to harass members. He says legal steps are being taken. He claims his own story. Suga looked at Jungkook. Can you do that without collapsing? Jungkook's mouth tightened. Yes. Jin's voice was soft. And if you can't? Jungkook looked at him. The anger softened a little. Then you stop me. Jin nodded, trying not to cry again. Okay. Jimin stood near the end of the bed, hands clenched. He wanted to beg Jungkook not to carry more. He wanted to say he would take the blame, the hiatus, the public anger, all of it. But taking everything onto himself would only repeat the same pattern. So instead, he asked, Do you want me in the video? Jungkook looked at him. The room went still. The question was simple, but it meant everything. Jimin was not assuming. He was asking. Jungkook studied him for a long moment. Yes. Jimin's eyes widened slightly. Jungkook continued. You and TAEHYUNG. TAEHYUNG looked shocked. Me? Yes. Jungkook, if I'm beside you, people might twist it. Jungkook's voice dropped. They already twisted your absence, your presence, your silence, and your face. Let them choke on the truth for once. Suga muttered. That's a good line. RM looked at the PR manager. Can we do it safely? She nodded. One take. Short. No edits, or people will accuse us of manipulation. We control background, lighting, medical privacy. No hospital logos. Jin adjusted the curtain. J-Hope moved the extra equipment out of frame. Suga checked the door. RM reviewed the message. Jimin and TAEHYUNG stood on either side of Jungkook's bed, both looking like they had walked through fire and were not sure they had survived. Jungkook sat upright, pale but determined. Before recording, he looked at Jimin. Don't apologize in this video. Jimin blinked. But not because you don't owe one, because the public is not the place for the apology you owe me. Jimin's throat tightened. Okay. Jungkook looked at TAEHYUNG. Don't explain everything. TAEHYUNG nodded. Okay. Jungkook looked at RM. If I say too much, stop me. RM held the phone, his eyes full of fear and pride. I will. The recording began. Jungkook looked into the camera. For a second, he was not the polished performer, not the maknae on stage, not the quiet man people projected stories onto. He was just tired, wounded, and done. This is Jungkook, he said. I know many people are worried. I am receiving treatment, and I am stable. I need to say this clearly. JIMIN did not hurt me. TAEHYUNG did not hurt me. The rumors blaming them are false. He paused, breathing carefully. JIMIN stood perfectly still beside him. TAEHYUNG's eyes shone, but he did not look away. JUNGKOOK continued. There are things being investigated legally, and we cannot explain everything tonight. But my condition is being used by people who want to divide us. Please do not attack my members. Please do not turn my pain into a weapon. His voice shook slightly on the last word. Jin looked away, covering his mouth. Jungkook's hand moved on the blanket. JIMIN saw it, hesitated, then gently placed his fingers near Jungkook's hand without taking it. Jungkook looked down for half a second. Then, on camera, he placed his hand over JIMIN's. TAEHYUNG inhaled quietly. The moment was not romantic, not dramatic in the way strangers would want it to be. It was human. Hurt reaching toward hurt. Jungkook looked back at the camera. We will speak when it is safe and truthful. Until then, hear this from me. I choose my own voice. No one else gets to use it. RM ended the recording. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then Suga said quietly, "Post it." The PR manager looked terrified. Once it's up, we can't take it back. Jungkook leaned back against the pillow, exhausted. That's the point. RM posted the video from Jungkook's verified personal account. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the numbers began climbing so fast, the screen could barely keep up. Views, comments, shares, translations, clips. The official narrative Han had promised for morning was suddenly wounded before it could be born. JIMIN watched the video replay silently on another phone, watched Jungkook's hand cover his, watched TAEHYUNG standing on the other side like someone being pulled back from the edge. For the first time that night, truth had moved faster than the lie. Then RM's phone rang. He looked at the screen and went still. It's the board chair. Suga's eyes narrowed. Already, RM answered on speaker. The voice on the other end was older, controlled, and furious. Take the video down. Jungkook closed his eyes. JIMIN's hand tightened. RM looked at all of them before answering. No. The board chair did not shout. That made the call more dangerous. His voice stayed calm, almost gentle, the way powerful people sounded when they were used to being obeyed without needing volume. Namjoon, I am telling you this for the protection of everyone involved. Remove the video. We will issue a corrected statement after internal review. RM stood near the window, phone on speaker, with all 6 members watching him. Jungkook looked exhausted after recording, but his eyes were open. JIMIN stood beside the bed, still feeling the warmth of Jungkook's hand over his. TAEHYUNG sat near the chair now, head lowered but no longer empty. Jin and J-Hope stood close together. Suga guarded the door like he expected the company to send someone physically next. RM's voice remained level. Internal review by the same structure that allowed Director Han into this room? Silence. The board chair said, "Be careful with accusations." Suga muttered, "Everyone loves that sentence today." RM ignored him. A listening device was found in Jungkook's hospital room. It transmitted to executive strategy. Director Han entered without clearance and threatened indefinite hiatus for JIMIN and TAEHYUNG. Jungkook's injury has been used in leaks. A staff member connected to a prior buried case attacked him while live streaming. We are past careful wording. The board chair's voice hardened. You are emotionally compromised. Jungkook laughed softly from the bed. It was not amusement. It was disbelief. We're human. That's different. The chair paused. Jungkook, you should not be involved in this conversation while under medical care. Jungkook looked at the phone. I'm involved because it's my body in the headlines. JIMIN looked at him, guilt and admiration twisting together. The chair sighed. The video has created instability. Investors are calling. Media outlets are demanding confirmation. Legal exposure has multiplied, RM answered. Good. Jin looked at him, surprised. RM's face was calm now. almost frighteningly calm. If the truth creates instability, then the system was already unstable. Suga gave a small nod. J-Hope breathed out like he had been holding air for hours. The board chair's tone cooled. "What do you want?" That question changed the room. Until now, everyone had been reacting. To leaks, to threats, to injuries, to secret contracts, to old cover-ups. But now, for the first time, someone with power asked what they wanted, and the answer could not be small. RM looked at JUNGKOok. JUNGKOok looked at JIMIN. JIMIN looked at TAEHYUNG. TAEHYUNG looked at Jin and J-Hope. Suga spoke first. "Independent investigation. Not company appointed." Jin added, "Full review of Min-jae's sister's case." J-Hope's voice trembled but held. "And direct apology to her if the company failed her." Taehyung lifted his head. "Protection from public scapegoating. No hiatus framed as guilt." Jimin swallowed. "Release me from any confidential document that prevents me from submitting Doyun's messages and meetings to outside counsel." Jungkook's voice was last. "And no one speaks for my injury without my approval." RM listened, then spoke into the phone. "You heard them." The board chair was silent for long enough that the machines in the room became loud. Finally he said, "You are making demands from a hospital room in the middle of a public crisis." RM's answer was immediate. "Yes. That is not how governance works." Suga stepped closer to the phone. "Maybe that's the problem." The chair ignored him. "If you continue this path, there will be consequences." Jungkook looked at Jimin, then at Taehyung. His voice was quiet but unshaking. "There already were." The call ended. Nobody moved. The silence after a threat always felt different from the silence before one. Before, there was uncertainty. After, there was only choice. RM placed the phone on the table. "We need outside counsel now." Jin nodded. "I know someone." Suga looked at him. "Of course you do." Jin did not smile. "I should have called them last year." J-Hope touched his shoulder. "Then call now." Jin stepped into the hallway. Taehyung watched him go, then looked at Jungkook. "Your video is everywhere." Jungkook closed his eyes. "Good or bad?" Taehyung checked his phone. His expression shifted slowly. "Both. But more people are asking why the company didn't protect you. They're also defending me." Jimin looked over. "They are?" Taehyung nodded, stunned. "Clips are spreading of you saying I didn't hurt him, and Jungkook saying not to attack members." Jimin let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. "Good." Taehyung looked at him for a second. "You really meant it." Jimin met his eyes. "I did." Taehyung's face softened, but only a little. Trust was not repaired because one sentence was finally right. Jungkook opened his eyes. "Jimin." Jimin turned immediately. "Yeah?" The room shifted around them, giving space without leaving. Jungkook's voice was low. "I need to ask you something, and I need the truth." Jimin nodded, fear rising again. "Ask." "If none of this had happened, if there were no leaks, no hospital, no Doyun, no Han, would you have told me about the contract?" Jimin felt the answer like a stone in his throat. He wanted to explain first. Wanted to say he was going to, eventually, when things were calmer, when the threat was gone, when he understood himself better. But those were soft lies. Jungkook had asked for truth, not self-defense. Jimin looked at him and said, "No." Jungkook's face tightened. Taehyung looked down. RM closed his eyes. Jimin kept going, voice breaking but steady. "Not because you didn't deserve it. Because I was a coward. I was afraid if you knew I even thought about leaving for a solo project, you would look at me differently. I was afraid you'd think I chose myself over you, over the group. So I kept waiting for a version of the truth that made me look less selfish." Jungkook's eyes shone, but he did not look away. "And did you choose yourself?" Jimin wiped his face quickly, angry at the tears but unable to stop them. "For a moment, I wanted to, not instead of you, not instead of BTS. But yes, I wanted something that was mine. And I hated myself for it. Jungkook was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I wouldn't have hated you for wanting that. Jimin's breath caught. Jungkook's voice cracked slightly. I hated being treated like I couldn't survive knowing it. That broke something open in Jimin. He sat carefully on the edge of the chair near the bed, not touching Jungkook this time. I'm sorry. Jungkook looked away. I know. No. I don't mean the apology people say because they want pain to end. I mean, I understand that I made you lonely while pretending to protect you. I understand that every time you reached for me and I stepped back, I made you question yourself. I understand that you had to become calm because I was chaos, and that wasn't fair. Jungkook's hand curled against the blanket. Stop. Jimin stopped immediately. Jungkook swallowed hard. Not because you're wrong. Because I can't carry all of that tonight. Jimin nodded, tears falling silently. Okay. That was new too. Stopping when asked. Not pushing apology as another form of control. Just stopping. Jungkook closed his eyes again, exhausted. I don't know what happens to us. Jimin's face crumpled. I know. I still care. Jimin looked up. Jungkook did not open his eyes. That's the problem. The words hung between them, painful and honest. Outside the room, Jin returned with a number written on paper and a look of grim determination. Outside counsel can meet us in 2 hours. RM nodded. Good. Suga's phone buzzed at the same time. He checked it and went still. What? J-Hope asked. Suga lifted his eyes. Han has been removed from the hospital clearance list. TAEHYUNG exhaled. That's good. Suga did not look convinced. Maybe. RM took the phone. Why? Maybe? Suga's voice dropped. Because 5 minutes ago, someone accessed Jungkook's medical transfer request. Jimin stood. Transfer? Jungkook opened his eyes. RM read the message, his expression hardening with every word. An executive order was submitted to move Jungkook to a private recovery facility outside Seoul before morning. Jin's face went pale. Without our approval, Suga nodded, signed by Han. TAEHYUNG stepped forward. But he was just removed. RM looked toward the door. Then he's moving before they cut him off completely. Jungkook tried to sit up again, anger flashing through the exhaustion. Jimin moved closer but did not touch him. What do we do? RM looked at every member, and this time his leadership did not feel like a wall. It felt like a door opening. We leave first. Jin stared at him. Leave the hospital? Not publicly. Not through company transport. Not to the facility they chose. Suga's eyes sharpened. Safe house? RM nodded. My apartment is known. Dorm is watched. Studio is compromised. J-Hope whispered. Where can we go? TAEHYUNG slowly lifted his head. I know a place. Everyone turned to him. TAEHYUNG swallowed. My family has a private house outside the city. Quiet. No public schedule connection. No company staff. If we leave separately and switch cars twice, we can get Jungkook there. Jin looked at Jungkook. Can he travel? Jungkook's voice was weak but firm. I'm not being moved by Han. Jimin looked at TAEHYUNG. The old Jimin would have questioned him. Not because TAEHYUNG was suspicious, but because fear made trust feel dangerous. This, Jimin only nodded. Then we go with TAE. TAEHYUNG stared at him. The claim had become real. Not in speeches, in action. RM began issuing instructions. Jin called the doctor they trusted. J-Hope gathered Jungkook's things. Suga contacted outside counsel. TAEHYUNG arranged cars through someone outside company channels. Jimin stayed by Jungkook's bed, close but not crowding him. Jungkook looked at him, tired eyes unreadable. You're really trusting him? Jimin looked at TAEHYUNG, then back at Jungkook. I'm trusting you. Jungkook blinked. For the first time all night, the silence between them did not feel like a locked door. It felt like a damaged bridge, holding just enough weight for one careful step. Then, every light in the hospital room went out at once. The machines switched to backup power. The hallway erupted in shouting. Suga's voice cut through the dark. That wasn't an accident. JIMIN reached for JUNGKOok in the blackness, and this time JUNGKOok reached back first. The darkness lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to tear open every fear in the room. JIMIN's hand found JUNGKOok's in the black, and JUNGKOok gripped him back with a force that did not match the weakness of his body. Around them, the hospital backup system clicked alive, red emergency strips glowing along the floor, turning everyone's faces into shadows and sharp angles. Jin cursed under his breath. J-Hope dropped a bag and whispered JUNGKOok's name like a prayer. Suga was already at the door, one hand against the handle, listening to the hallway. RM turned on his phone flashlight, the beam cutting across the room and landing on JUNGKOok's pale face, then on JIMIN's hand locked around his. Nobody said anything about it. There was no time. TAEHYUNG moved to the window, checked the curtains, then looked back. The hallway cameras? Suga kept his ear near the door. Could be down, could be looped, could be worse. RM's voice was low and controlled. No one opens that door until we know who is outside. As if answering him, footsteps rushed past the room. Not hospital staff. Too heavy. Too fast. Then voices came from the corridor, muffled but urgent. Transfer team is here. Prepare the patient. Jin's face went cold. They sent them already. JUNGKOok tried to push himself upright, but pain hit him, and he almost folded. JIMIN moved closer instinctively. Don't! JUNGKOok's eyes flashed. Don't start. I'm not stopping you. I'm helping you sit without tearing yourself apart. For 1 second, JUNGKOok looked ready to argue. Then he let JIMIN slide an arm behind his shoulders. The surrender was small, practical, and it shook JIMIN more than any forgiveness could have. Jun moved to the other side and checked the IV line. We need a doctor we trust, not whoever they send. J-Hope lifted his phone. The doctor from earlier said he'd help if we needed documentation. Call him, RM said. J-Hope nodded and stepped into the bathroom for less echo. Suga looked through the peephole, then pulled back. 2 men in suits, 1 hospital administrator, 1 security guard I don't recognize. TAEHYUNG's jaw tightened. Han's people. RM looked at the room, calculating. JUNGKOok could not walk far. The official exit was compromised. The hospital staff could not all be trusted. The company transport was out of the question. Every normal path had become a trap because Han knew normal procedure better than they did. JIMIN saw RM thinking and said, Service elevator. RM looked at him. What? When we came up, I saw a laundry cart route near the back hall. It doesn't connect to the main lobby. It connects to the basement loading area. Suga turned. You noticed that? JIMIN swallowed. I notice exits when I'm scared. Nobody laughed. The confession was too true. TAEHYUNG pulled up a map on his phone from memory and old staff photos. If we can get him to the service elevator, I can have the first car waiting near the loading bay. Jen frowned. He needs a wheelchair. Suga opened the closet near the door and looked inside. There's 1 folded here. RM nodded. Good. We leave in 3 minutes. A knock hit the door. 3 firm strikes. Everyone froze. A male voice followed. This is hospital administration. We need to move patient JUNGKOok for safety reasons. JUNGKOok's hand tightened around JIMIN's. JIMIN looked down, then at the door. The old version of him would have panicked. The old version might have answered, shouted, demanded, made himself the center of the crisis. This time he waited for RM. RM stepped near the door but did not open it. Who authorized the transfer? Executive order from company representation. RM's eyes hardened. Patient refuses. The voice outside became less polite. The patient is under artist protection protocol, Suga whispered. That's not a medical category. Jin's face darkened. They're trying to move him as property. JUNGKOok's voice rose from the bed, hoarse but clear. I refuse transfer. Silence outside. Then the administrator said, JUNGKOok's voice this is for your safety. JUNGKOok looked at the door like he could burn through it. My safety was ignored until I became inconvenient. JIMIN's chest tightened. The man outside murmured. RM lifted his phone and began recording openly. State your name and medical authority for ordering movement of a patient who verbally refuses transfer. No answer. Suga smiled coldly. They hate documentation. Jin moved fast now, disconnecting what could be safely disconnected under the doctor's guidance through J-Hope's call. J-Hope returned, phone pressed to his ear. Doctor says he can meet us at the side corridor in 5 minutes. He'll document that JUNGKOok leaves against executive transfer, but not against medical advice if stable with support. RM nodded. Good. The knock came again, louder. Open the door! Suga looked at everyone. That's our cue. TAEHYUNG slipped JUNGKOok's cap and mask from the bag. JIMIN helped him put on the hoodie carefully, hands shaking only once when JUNGKOok winced. Sorry, JIMIN whispered. JUNGKOok looked at him. I know. 2 words. Not forgiveness. Not absolution. But not rejection either. Jin and JIMIN eased JUNGKOok into the wheelchair. JUNGKOok tried to hide the pain, failed, and looked furious about failing. J-Hope touched his shoulder. You're allowed to hurt. JUNGKOok breathed out slowly. I hate that sentence. I know, J-Hope said. I'm saying it anyway. For the first time in hours, JUNGKOok's mouth almost curved. Then the door handle rattled. Someone outside was using a keycard. Suga shoved a chair under the handle. Move! RM opened the adjoining staff door that led to a small supply corridor. It was not meant for patients, barely wide enough for the wheelchair, but it was empty. They slipped through one by one. Suga stayed last, removing the chair at the final second and pulling the supply door shut just as the main door opened behind them. Voices erupted in the room they had left. Where is he? RM pushed forward. J-Hope walked beside JUNGKOok, phone still connected to the doctor. Jin carried the medical bag. TAEHYUNG led them through the service corridor. Suga stayed behind them, checking every corner. JIMIN stayed closest to JUNGKOok, one hand on the wheelchair handle, one hand ready in case JUNGKOok needed him. Not grabbing, not forcing. Ready. They moved past shelves of linen, carts of sealed supplies, and a sleeping staff monitor buzzing on a desk. Every sound felt too loud. Every second felt stolen. At the end of the corridor, the trusted doctor waited with a nurse who looked terrified but determined. Quickly, the doctor said. He checked JUNGKOok's pulse, pupils, breathing, then handed Jin a small packet. Pain management instructions. Hydration. If he worsens, you call emergency services, not company staff. Jin nodded. Thank you. The doctor looked at JUNGKOok. You understand the risk? JUNGKOok nodded. I understand the bigger risk. The doctor held his gaze, then stepped aside. Then go. The service elevator opened with a soft ding that sounded impossibly loud. Everyone got inside. Just before the doors closed, shouting echoed from the corridor behind them. Stop them! The elevator descended. Nobody breathed. JIMIN looked at JUNGKOok, and JUNGKOok looked back. In the red emergency light, his face was drained, but his eyes were alive. Angry, hurt, determined. JIMIN whispered, I'm sorry I made you fight alone before. JUNGKOok's answer was barely audible. Then don't disappear when this gets harder. The elevator doors opened to the basement. TAEHYUNG's first car was waiting outside the loading bay, engine running, headlights off. But beside it stood someone nobody expected. Min-jae's sister. She was older than Min-jae, thin-faced, eyes swollen like she had been crying for years and only stopped long enough to stand there. Jin froze. J-Hope whispered, Mina. Mina looked at JUNGKOok first, then at Jin, then at RM. If you want to take Han down, she said, voice shaking but steady, you need what they buried with me. No one trusted the moment at first. They could not. Trust had become too expensive. The basement air was cold, heavy with engine fumes and hospital waste bins, and Mina stood near the car like a ghost from a year they had all failed to understand. Jin's face went pale with guilt so visible it looked almost physical. J-Hope took one step toward her, then stopped because he did not know if he had the right. RM looked at Suga. Suga's expression said the same thing everyone was thinking. This could be another trap. Mina seemed to read it on their faces. She lifted both hands slowly. I'm alone. I contacted Jin because I still had his old number from the settlement meeting. Jin swallowed hard. I didn't know you still had it. Mina looked at him, not cruelly, but without comfort. I kept everything from that time. When people call you a liar, you start collecting proof that you existed. That sentence hit the group harder than accusation. JIMIN looked at JUNGKOOK, who was watching Mina from the wheelchair with quiet attention. He looked exhausted, but not confused. JUNGKOOK understood what it meant to be turned into evidence while still being alive. RM spoke carefully. Mina, SSI. We need to move. If you have proof, come with us. But we can't stay here. Mina glanced toward the elevator. Han's people are searching upstairs. I saw 2 of them enter from the staff gate. TAEHYUNG opened the car door. Then we leave now. The first car was only meant to get them away from the hospital. Jin and J-Hope helped JUNGKOOK into the back seat, while JIMIN slid beside him after a brief pause, waiting for JUNGKOOK's nod before entering. JUNGKOOK gave it. TAEHYUNG took the front passenger seat, guiding the driver with short instructions. RM, Suga, Jin, J-Hope, and Mina split into the second car behind them. The convoy moved without lights at first, then slipped into the late-night streets like nothing more than another private vehicle leaving a hospital service road. JIMIN looked through the rear window until the building disappeared. His hand rested on his own knee, close to JUNGKOOK's but not touching. JUNGKOOK noticed. After a few minutes, he said, "You can stop looking like you're waiting for permission to breathe." JIMIN turned toward him. "I kind of am." JUNGKOOK's eyes softened for half a second, then turned tired again. "I don't want you scared of me. I'm not scared of you. You're scared of hurting me." JIMIN looked down. "That's worse." JUNGKOOK leaned his head back against the seat, breathing carefully. "Maybe, but don't turn guilt into obedience. I don't need that either." JIMIN absorbed it slowly. Even now, JUNGKOOK was teaching him the line between care and control, between apology and self-punishment. JIMIN nodded. "Then tell me what you need right now." JUNGKOOK closed his eyes. "Quiet, and don't leave the car." JIMIN almost smiled. "That one I can do." TAEHYUNG looked at them through the rearview mirror, then looked away quickly, giving them privacy without pretending he had not heard. The first car changed near a closed parking structure. The second car arrived 30 seconds later. Suga checked the surroundings before anyone moved. RM spoke to outside counsel on a secure call, his voice low and clipped. Mina stayed close to Jin, but did not lean on him. There was history there, but not comfort. Not yet. They switched into 2 different vehicles, with plates arranged by TAEHYUNG's family contact, then drove out toward the edge of Seoul. No one used company phones, except as decoys. Suga placed 2 devices inside the first abandoned car to keep signals moving in the wrong direction. J-Hope looked at him and whispered, "You've done this before?" Suga glanced at him. "I write about crime. I pay attention." J-Hope did not know whether to laugh or cry, so he did neither. The safe house sat beyond a quiet road, lined with trees, far enough from the city to feel unreal but close enough that emergency care could still be reached. It was not grand in a celebrity way. It was a private family house with warm wood floors, heavy curtains, a small garden, and an old piano in the corner of the living room. That normalness almost broke JIMIN. After hospital lights, parking garages, live streams, threats, and blackmail, the sight of slippers by the entrance and a kettle on the counter felt like stepping into a life they were never allowed to have. JUNGKOOK was settled on the long sofa with blankets and medical supplies nearby. Jin immediately took over care again, checking instructions, arranging water, making sure JUNGKOOK's pain medication schedule was written down. J-Hope started making tea because his hands needed a task. RM set up in the dining area with Suga and Mina. TAEHYUNG called his family quietly, assuring them no one was in danger, in a way that made it obvious everyone was in danger. JIMIN stood in the living room, unsure where to place himself. JUNGKOOK noticed again. "Sit down." JIMIN sat in the chair beside the sofa. "Sorry," JUNGKOOK opened one eye. "You apologize for furniture now?" JIMIN blinked, then a small laugh escaped before he could stop it. It was weak and broken, but it was still a laugh. Jungkook closed his eye again. Good. You sounded human for a second. Across the room, TAEHYUNG heard it and let out a breath. Not relief exactly. More like the first sign that everyone had not been completely destroyed. Then Mina placed a small hard drive on the dining table. The room changed again. RM sat across from her. Tell us what's on it. Mina wrapped both hands around the tea J-Hope had given her, though she did not drink. Last year, I reported that a staff member was selling private schedule routes to Sasang brokers. I had screenshots, payment records, and audio. I was a trainee then. Not important enough to protect. At first, Jin Oppa and Hosiak Oppa came to one meeting because they heard my name was being dragged into something connected to the group. Jin lowered his head. We thought we were helping. Mina looked at him. I know. That answer did not absolve him, but it stopped him from collapsing into guilt. She continued. Director Han took over after that. He said the company would handle everything quietly to protect me. He made me sign an agreement. He said if I spoke publicly, the Sasang brokers would target my family. Then articles started appearing saying I had created rumors for attention. My trainee contract ended. My brother watched it happen. J-Hope's voice was small. Min Jae, Mina nodded. He was angry. I told him to let it go because I was tired. But he didn't. A few months ago, someone contacted him and said the same people were doing it again, this time around BTS. He thought he could expose everyone. Suga's eyes narrowed. Do-yeon. Do-yeon contacted him first, Mina said. But Do-yeon wasn't the one with access. Han was. RM leaned forward. And the hard drive? Mina pushed it toward him. Original files. The schedule leak evidence. The settlement draft. Audio of Han telling me the truth would damage more valuable people. And one more file I didn't understand until tonight. Suga connected the drive to an offline laptop he had brought. What file? Mina looked at Jimin. A folder with your name. Jimin went still. Jungkook opened his eyes. Suga clicked through the drive. The room held its breath. A folder appeared. PJM Risk Profile. Inside were documents, screenshots, private schedule notes, personality assessments, media vulnerability charts, and one file labeled emotional leverage points. Jimin's face drained of color. TAEHYUNG whispered, What the hell? RM looked like he might break the laptop in half. Suga opened the file. It listed patterns. Jimin's fear of disappointing fans, his protective attachment to Jungkook, his tendency to isolate under shame, his concern about being perceived as selfish. Under recommended containment strategy, one sentence was highlighted. Apply pressure through Jungkook proximity risk. Jungkook sat up despite the pain. They profiled him. Jin covered his mouth. J-Hope's eyes filled again. TAEHYUNG looked at Jimin, devastated. Jimin did not move. He stared at the screen like he had been stripped open in front of everyone. For months he had hated himself for being weak. Now he was seeing that someone had studied his wounds and turned them into buttons. It did not erase his choices, but it changed the shape of the blame. Jungkook's voice cut through the room, low and fierce. Jimin. Jimin did not answer. Jungkook pushed himself upright. Look at me. Jimin slowly turned. Jungkook's eyes were wet with anger, not at him, but for him. They used what you loved against you. Jimin's lips trembled. I still let them. Yes, Jungkook said, honest as a blade, but you didn't invent the knife. That broke Jimin, not loudly, not dramatically. His face crumpled, and for the first time that night he covered his mouth and cried, like someone who had been holding up a ceiling with his bare hands and finally felt it lifted by 1 inch. Jungkook reached out from the sofa. Jimin hesitated only once, then moved to him. Jungkook pulled him close enough for Jimin to kneel beside the sofa, forehead lowered against the edge of the blanket, shoulders shaking. Nobody interrupted. Nobody turned the moment into a speech. TAEHYUNG looked away to give them privacy, but tears ran down his face too. Jin sat down heavily, guilt and grief folding through him. J-Hope cried silently into his hands. RM stared at the file with a leader's rage and a brother's heartbreak. Suga closed the laptop halfway, not to hide the truth, but to stop it from cutting Jimin while he was bleeding. Mina watched them all and whispered, That's what he does. He makes people think their pain is their own fault. RM looked at her. Not anymore. Morning arrived without peace. The sky outside the safe house turned gray-blue over the trees, and phones began lighting up again with the damage of the night. Jungkook's video had crossed millions of views. The company had not yet released Han's planned statement, probably because the public reaction had made it dangerous. Clips of Minjae's livestream were everywhere. Some people believed Jungkook. Some accused the members of staging sympathy. Some demanded Han's resignation without even knowing the full evidence. Some were already building stories around Mina, TAEHYUNG, JIMIN, the old trainee case, the private contract, and every glance they had caught on camera. Truth had moved fast, but speculation moved faster. In the living room, nobody had slept properly. Jungkook drifted in and out under Jin's watch. JIMIN sat near him on the floor, back against the sofa, wrapped in a blanket J-Hope had thrown over his shoulders without asking. Taehyung sat near the window, phone in hand, reading only what RM allowed him to read, which was almost nothing. Suga and outside counsel had spent hours copying Mina's files, verifying timestamps, and preparing a legal preservation demand. RM looked like he had aged years, but his eyes were clearer than they had been in the hospital. The outside lawyer arrived shortly after sunrise, a woman named Attorney Choi, who did not look impressed by fame, panic, or corporate threats. She reviewed the evidence in silence, asked direct questions, and stopped anyone who tried to over-explain. When JIMIN began blaming himself again in the timeline, she looked at him over her glasses and said, "Guilt is not evidence. Give me facts." Suga immediately looked like he respected her. RM almost smiled for the first time all night. The catharsis did not come as one big emotional release. It came in pieces, each one painful, each one necessary. Jin called Mina into the garden first. He did not bring cameras, lawyers, or excuses. J-Hope went with him because he had been part of that old silence too. Mina stood near the small stone path, arms folded against the cold morning air. Jin bowed deeply, not a celebrity bow, not a public apology, a human one. "I'm sorry," he said. "I believed what was easier to believe. I thought silence was protecting you. It protected the company. It protected my comfort. It did not protect you." J-Hope's voice trembled when he spoke. "I should have called you after the meeting. I should have checked if you were okay. I was scared of making things worse, but I used that fear as a reason to disappear." Mina's face tightened. For a moment, she looked like she might tell them it was too late. Maybe part of her wanted to. Instead, she wiped one tear quickly, angry that it had fallen. "My brother did terrible things last night." Jen nodded. "Yes, he hurt Jungkook. Yes, but he was not born like that." J-Hope's eyes filled. "I know." Mina looked between them. "I don't need you to make him innocent. He isn't. I need you to make sure Han doesn't use him as the only monster in the story." Jin nodded again. "We will tell the truth. All of it." Mina stared at him. "Even the part where you failed?" Jin's eyes shone. "Especially that part." Inside, TAEHYUNG and JIMIN found themselves alone in the kitchen, both pretending to make coffee neither of them wanted. For a while, the only sounds were the kettle, cups, and the faint murmur of Attorney Choi in the dining room. TAEHYUNG finally said, "I meant what I said earlier." JIMIN looked at him. "That now I care?" TAEHYUNG's jaw moved. "I said it to hurt you." "It did." "I know." JIMIN leaned against the counter. "But it wasn't completely unfair." TAEHYUNG looked down. "That's the worst part, isn't it? When anger has truth inside it." JIMIN nodded slowly. "I was jealous of you." TAEHYUNG let out a tired breath. "I know. Not because you did anything wrong. I know that too. I hated that Jungkook could breathe around you, when he looked like he was holding his breath around me." Taehyung's face softened with sadness. "He wasn't breathing around me, Jimin. He was surviving around me. There's a difference." Jimin closed his eyes. The sentence settled deep. Taehyung continued, quieter now. "He asked about you constantly. Even when he stopped asking you, he noticed if you ate. He noticed if your ankle hurt. He noticed if you smiled at the wrong time, because it meant you were hiding something. Do you know how hard it was to stand there, knowing he loved you enough to keep watching while you kept stepping away?" Jimin opened his eyes, tears already there. Don't say loved like past tense. Taehyung looked at him carefully. Then don't treat it like something you can return to untouched. JIMIN nodded. Because that was fair. Whatever existed between him and JUNGKOOK, whatever name anyone wanted to put on it or not put on it, had been changed. Not destroyed maybe, but changed. It would not go back to easy closeness just because danger made them hold hands in the dark. I don't want to take him from you, JIMIN said. Taehyung looked startled, then hurt. He was never mine to keep. You know what I mean. I do, Taehyung stared into the untouched coffee. And you need to understand something too. I protected him because I care about him. I protected you because I care about you. But I am tired of being the place people go when they can't face each other. JIMIN absorbed that. It was another truth he had not earned the right to avoid. I'm sorry, Taehyung nodded. I believe you. JIMIN looked up. Taehyung's mouth tightened. That doesn't mean we're okay. I know. But it means we can start. In the living room, JUNGKOOK had woken and heard the last part. He did not announce it. He simply listened, eyes open, face turned toward the kitchen, letting their honesty exist without him managing it. That, too, was new. He did not have to hold every broken edge together. RM found him awake and sat beside the sofa. How much did you hear? JUNGKOOK looked at the ceiling. Enough. RM nodded. Do you want to talk to JIMIN alone? JUNGKOOK was quiet. Yes. RM stood immediately. I'll clear the room. JUNGKOOK caught his sleeve. Hyung! RM looked down. JUNGKOOK's voice softened. You don't have to fix the order of everything before we feel it. RM went still. That sentence hit him in a place leadership had made numb. I don't know how to stop. Learn with us. RM looked away, blinking hard. Then he nodded once and went to ask everyone for space. JIMIN entered a minute later, slow, careful, like the room had become sacred ground. JUNGKOOK watched him sit in the chair beside the sofa. Not too close. Not far. You can sit on the floor, JUNGKOOK said. JIMIN blinked. What? You always sit on the floor when you're scared. A small, broken smile crossed JIMIN's face. You noticed? JUNGKOOK's eyes were tired. I noticed everything. That was part of the problem. JIMIN slid down from the chair and sat on the floor beside the sofa, knees bent, hands clasped. For a while, neither of them spoke. The silence was not empty. It was full of all the words they had delayed until they became dangerous. JUNGKOOK spoke first. I need to say things without you falling apart, JIMIN nodded. I'll try. No, I need more than try. JIMIN looked at him. JUNGKOOK's voice was gentle but firm. If I tell you I was angry, don't punish yourself so much that I have to comfort you. If I tell you I was lonely, don't make me prove I still care. If I tell you I don't forgive something yet, don't turn it into goodbye before I say goodbye. JIMIN's eyes filled, but he breathed through it. Okay. JUNGKOOK studied him. Okay. Okay, JIMIN repeated. I can listen. JUNGKOOK looked away for a second, gathering himself. You made me feel stupid. JIMIN flinched, but stayed quiet. JUNGKOOK continued. Not because you wanted a solo project. I would have understood that. Maybe I would have been hurt for a day. Maybe jealous. Maybe scared. But I would have understood. What made me feel stupid was defending you when I knew you were lying. I kept telling myself you had a reason. I kept making myself smaller so your distance wouldn't look cruel. I thought, if I stayed patient enough, you'd come back. JIMIN's tears fell silently. He did not interrupt. JUNGKOOK's voice shook. And then the messages started. They said I was the reason your life was getting ruined. They said if I stayed near you, I'd destroy you. I didn't believe them at first. But then you acted like being near me was dangerous, and I started thinking maybe they were right. JIMIN covered his mouth but did not speak. JUNGKOOK looked at him. That is what I need you to understand. JIMIN lowered his hand, forcing himself to answer without collapsing into excuses. I understand. JUNGKOOK's eyes sharpened. Do you? I made their lie feel true. JUNGKOOK's face changed. JIMIN continued, voice shaking but clear. They told you were dangerous to me. Then I treated you like you were. That's what hurt you. Not just the secret. JUNGKOOK closed his eyes. and one tear slipped down toward his temple. Yeah. Jimin's breath broke. I'm sorry. JUNGKOOK nodded slightly. I know. I won't ask you to forgive me now. JUNGKOOK opened his eyes. Good. That almost made Jimin smile through tears. JUNGKOOK's fingers shifted on the blanket, not reaching, just moving. Jimin noticed and waited. JUNGKOOK looked annoyed at being read so easily. You can hold my hand. Jimin let out a small breath and took his hand carefully, like something bruised but not broken. JUNGKOOK's grip was weak. Jimin held it anyway. I wanted the solo project, Jimin said quietly. JUNGKOOK looked at him. I know. Part of me still wants to know who I am outside the fear. JUNGKOOK's expression softened with pain and honesty. Then find out without disappearing. Jimin looked at him. Would you hate that? I might be scared. JUNGKOOK swallowed. But I don't want to be the reason you stay small. Jimin bent his head over their joined hands, overwhelmed. JUNGKOOK let him for a second, then tugged weakly. Don't hide there. Jimin looked up. JUNGKOOK's eyes held his. We're not fixed. I know. But I'm still here. Jimin nodded, tears falling again. I'm here too. This time, the words did not sound like desperation. They sounded like a promise made with open eyes. By afternoon, the safe house had become a command center, built out of fear, grief, and finally, truth. Attorney Choi had enough evidence to file emergency preservation demands against the company, Han's department, Do-Yoon's network, and the media accounts that had coordinated the leaks. Mina gave a recorded statement. Jin and J-Hope added their own statements about last year's meeting, no longer hiding behind the idea that silence had been kindness. JIMIN submitted every message he had kept, including the ones he had been too ashamed to show. TAEHYUNG gave a statement about seeing Han at the studio. JUNGKOOK gave his account in short pieces because the doctor insisted he rest between answers, and for once, everyone obeyed the doctor before obeying panic. The catharsis was not clean. It did not make them suddenly safe. It did not erase the headlines. It did not fix Min-jae's choices, Mina's lost year, Jimin's lies, Taehyung's silence, Jin's misplaced trust, J-Hope's avoidance, RM's control, Suga's delayed suspicion, or JUNGKOOK's pain. But it changed one thing that mattered. The truth was no longer living inside one person at a time. It was shared, and because it was shared, it became harder to weaponize. Near sunset, RM gathered them in the living room. JUNGKOOK was still on the sofa, wrapped in a blanket, looking irritated that everyone kept treating him like glass, while also secretly grateful that Jin kept bringing warm water. Jimin sat on the floor near him, not touching now, but close enough that the distance no longer felt like punishment. Taehyung sat by the window. Suga leaned against the piano. Jin stood near the kitchen entrance. J-Hope sat beside Mina, who looked exhausted but steadier than when she had arrived. RM held his phone in one hand. The board wants a private call, Suga snorted. Of course they do. Jin crossed his arms. Do we take it? Attorney Choi, seated at the dining table, answered without looking up from her notes. You take it recorded, with counsel present, or not at all. RM nodded. Then recorded. The call connected to 3 board members, not Han.
That alone said something had shifted. The chair sounded less confident than before. We have reviewed preliminary concerns. Suga muttered, concerns. RM muted the phone for 1 second just to glare at him, then unmuted. The chair continued. Director Han has been placed on temporary administrative leave pending internal review. JUNGKOOK's eyes narrowed. Temporary. Attorney Choi leaned toward the phone. My clients are preserving all claims related to unauthorized surveillance, coercion, medical interference, defamation, retaliation, and mishandling of prior safety complaints. Temporary leave will not be treated as remedy. The chair went silent. Suga looked impressed again. JIMIN watched RM's shoulders settle slightly, not because the fight was over, but because for once someone else was carrying part of the legal weight. The chair said, We are prepared to issue a statement confirming that no member caused JUNGKOOK's injury and that an investigation into external interference is ongoing.
RM looked at Attorney Choi. She shook her head slightly. Not enough. RM said, internal and external interference. Another silence. That wording may create unnecessary speculation. Jungkook spoke before RM could. Speculation already exists because people lied. The air inhaled slowly. Jungkook, we are relieved you are stable. Jungkook's face hardened. Then say it in the statement without using me to protect yourselves. The room went still. The chair replied, we will consider revised wording. Attorney Choi said, you have 1 hour before we file for emergency injunction regarding any statement that misrepresents my client's positions. The call ended shortly after that, colder than it began, but different. This time, the threat did not belong only to the company. After the call, nobody celebrated. They were too tired. But J-Hope finally leaned back and whispered, we survived the first wave. Suga looked at him. Don't jinx it. J-Hope gave him a weak smile. I'm trying to be hopeful. Be suspicious and hydrated. For some reason, that made Jungkook laugh. It hurt his ribs, so he immediately regretted it, and Jin scolded him for laughing while looking secretly relieved to hear it. The sound loosened something in the room. Not joy, not yet, but life. Mina stood to leave after giving Attorney Choi everything she had. Jin walked her to the entryway. We will not let them bury this again. Mina looked at him for a long moment. I want to believe you. Jin nodded. Don't believe words. Watch what we do. She accepted that answer. Before leaving, she looked toward Jungkook. I'm sorry for what my brother did. Jungkook sat up a little. You're not responsible for him. Her face tightened with grief. People said that about the company too, but systems are made of people looking away. Jungkook absorbed that and nodded. Then we won't look away. Mina left with Attorney Choi's investigator escorting her. The house grew quieter after that, the kind of quiet that comes after confession, when everyone is too empty to keep pretending. Taehyung stepped outside onto the small back porch, and after a minute JIMIN followed. The evening air was cold. Trees moved softly in the wind. For a few seconds they stood side by side without speaking. Then Taehyung said, Jungkook asked me to stay close tonight. JIMIN looked at him. There it was again, the old sting trying to rise. But now JIMIN knew its name. Fear, not truth. Good, JIMIN said. Taehyung turned. Good. He trusts you. He should have people he trusts. Taehyung studied him, searching for resentment. There was pain, yes, but not resentment. And you? JIMIN breathed in slowly. I'm learning not to treat trust like a ranking. Taehyung looked away, blinking. That's annoyingly mature. JIMIN let out a tired laugh. Don't worry, I'll probably mess up again. Probably. They stood there, and for the first time since the hospital, the silence between them was not full of accusation. It was full of damage, but also the faint beginning of repair. Taehyung spoke softly. I don't want to lose either of you. JIMIN's throat tightened. Me neither. Then stop disappearing when you feel ashamed. JIMIN nodded. And you stop carrying things alone because you think being needed is the same as being loved. Taehyung looked at him sharply, wounded by the accuracy. Then he smiled sadly. Fair. Inside, Jungkook watched them through the glass door. RM noticed and sat down near him. You okay? Jungkook did not look away from the porch. No. RM nodded. Good answer. Jungkook glanced at him. RM leaned back in the chair, exhausted. I'm trying to stop asking questions only when I want reassuring answers. Jungkook looked back outside. I don't know how this works now. The group? Everything. RM followed his gaze. Maybe it works because we stop pretending it works automatically. Jungkook was quiet. That sounds tiring. It will be. Jungkook sighed. Great. RM smiled faintly. Then his phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. Every phone in the room followed. Jin came in from the kitchen, reading his screen. Suga pushed away from the piano. J-Hope stood.
Taehyung and JIMIN entered from the porch, already tense. The company statement had been released. RM opened it first and read aloud. "We confirm that JUNGKOok is stable and receiving care. Current rumors alleging harm caused by BTS members JIMIN or V are false. We are investigating unlawful interference by external parties and possible internal misconduct. We ask the public to refrain from speculation and harassment as legal review proceeds." For a moment, no one spoke. It wasn't perfect. It was corporate, careful, incomplete, but it named internal misconduct. It cleared JIMIN and Taehyung from hurting JUNGKOok. It did not bury everything. J-Hope covered his face and cried again, this time with relief mixed into it. Jin pulled him into a hug. Taehyung sat down hard on the chair like his legs had finally given up. JIMIN closed his eyes, breathing through a wave of emotion too complicated to name. JUNGKOok looked at him. "You're not free yet." JIMIN opened his eyes. "I know, but you're not alone either." JIMIN nodded. "I know that now." Suga's phone buzzed again. His expression changed. "Don't relax." RM turned. "What?" Suga held up the screen. "Han's temporary leave just leaked to the press." Jin frowned. "That was fast." Suga nodded slowly. "Too fast." Another notification appeared. Then another. A breaking headline. Former executive producer Kang Do-yeon claims BTS members and company leaders are staging a cover-up, promises to release full files at midnight. Jimin's blood went cold. JUNGKOok's face hardened. Taehyung whispered, "Midnight?" RM checked the time. 6:13 p.m., less than 6 hours. Attorney Choi's phone rang from the dining table. She answered, listened, and her face became grave. The court server received an anonymous evidence packet. Suga stepped closer. From who? She looked at the laptop, then at all 7 of them. It claims to contain the original, unedited files JIMIN was threatened with. JIMIN stopped breathing. JUNGKOok slowly reached for his hand, and this time he did not hide it. Attorney Choi opened the packet metadata, her eyes narrowing. "There's a note attached." RM's voice was low. "Read it." She read the line once silently, and the color drained from her face. Then she said it aloud. "Ask JUNGKOok what he did the night JIMIN first signed." Every eye turned to JUNGKOok. JIMIN felt JUNGKOok's hand go cold in his. JUNGKOok stared at the screen, face unreadable, and for the first time all day, he looked like the one holding the secret.